Jire Laro dreamed of becoming a hero, defeating the Demon King, and saving the princess, inspired by stories of glory and happiness. Over time, that dream faded away and became just a part of the past. A young adventurer suddenly appears and approaches the protagonist with enthusiasm, directly inviting him to join her group. Surprised by the sudden approach, he reacts without understanding the situation, completely caught off guard by the proposal. The protagonist immediately refuses and tries to end the conversation, but the girl insists, knocking on the door. Irritated by the noise, he opens it and confronts her, while she keeps trying to explain herself, making the situation even more tense. The girl introduces herself as Retina and continues insisting, ignoring the initial tension. Instead of backing off, she proposes that he directly join the group of heroes, maintaining her animated and determined approach. Retina keeps trying to convince him, promising exaggerated advantages while he begins to suspect her identity. Then, it is revealed that she was chosen by a sacred sword as a hero of the current generation, confirming her importance. The protagonist realizes that a new black-haired hero has been chosen and understands the misunderstanding. Tired of the situation, he concludes that she came after the wrong person and tries to end the matter. To clear up the misunderstanding, the protagonist reveals his true position as a low-level adventurer, making it clear that he is not the hero she is looking for. He shows his identification and states that he is just a low-level adventurer, making it clear that he has no connection to the chosen hero. Even after the explanation, she insists that she chose the right person and tries to make him remember something from the past, surprising him with her persistence. She recalls that years ago, she was saved by him during a bear attack, when she was still younger and weaker. Since then, she has deeply admired him and decided to follow the same path, keeping his words and that moment as inspiration to become a hero. Upon hearing his own words being repeated, the protagonist is confronted by memories he tries to forget. In the past, he had encouraged the girl not to cry and to become strong, words that deeply marked her life. Inspired by this, she began to follow that ideal and seek to become a hero. In the present, he falls into despair upon realizing the impact he caused, trying to deny and erase that past that now returns before him. She claims she recognized him immediately upon seeing him in the city and believes their reunion was destiny, even remembering details from the past. To her, he was always someone special. Meanwhile, still confused, he questions why a hero would choose him, not understanding why he was invited to the group. She reveals that her goal was always to fight alongside him, seeing it as an old dream that can finally come true. Faced with this direct declaration, he is surprised and speechless, while she insists on an immediate answer. He refuses directly and ends the conversation, trying to keep his distance. Even so, she completely ignores the rejection and continues acting with the same enthusiasm, as if his answer did not matter. The insistence turns into a chaotic argument, with him reaffirming his refusal while she keeps ignoring it. Exhausted by the pressure and the noise, he ends up giving in and agrees to join the group. After he gives in, she defines the agreement her way, turning something short into a long journey until defeating the Demon King. Even reluctant, he accepts the conditions, and she celebrates excitedly for finally having him in her group. Still confused, he tries to understand the situation and questions the group he just agreed to join. Upon hearing that he was mistaken for the black-haired hero, he realizes the reason for the mistake. Even so, she moves forward without being shaken and already plans the next steps, asking him to formalize his entry at the guild. She says goodbye excitedly and leaves as if everything has already been settled. Alone, he sighs, still confused about the situation, and decides to leave quickly to avoid further complications. As he walks away, he rejects the idea of facing the Demon King and grows frustrated with the situation. Despite that, he remembers that in the past, he truly wanted to become a hero. In the past, he dedicated himself intensely to becoming a hero, facing constant dangers and training non-stop, even enduring harsh methods to increase his power. He believed that by obtaining the sacred mark, he would finally achieve his goal and fulfill his dream of becoming a hero. He imagined that being a hero meant defeating the Demon King, being crowned king, and living a peaceful and comfortable life. That ideal attracted him, but over time he realized that the reality of heroes was much harder than it seemed. By listening to others, he understands that a hero's life is far from easy, marked by constant work and little peace, even after great achievements. Because of this, he begins to see that path with disbelief, rejecting the idealized vision he once had. Faced with reality, he questions all the effort he has made up to that point and whether it was truly worth it. In the end, he decides to abandon that path and start living simply, seeking only enough to live peacefully. He walks through the busy city believing that, among so many people, he will not be found by her. While trying to maintain a calm routine, he notices that something feels different in the environment, as if some event is taking place. While walking distracted, he bumps into a hooded girl, knocking her over by accident. Surprised, he tries to apologize, but she quickly takes the blame and apologizes in a hurried manner. After the collision, he notices the girl's unusual white hair and finds the situation strange. She apologizes quickly and leaves in a hurry. Shortly after, he notices that a pendant was left behind on the ground. He decides to return the pendant later, planning to leave it with the knights. As he walks, he hears that the princess is in the city and understands that the unusual movement is happening because it is the day she can freely walk among the people. Without caring about the city's movement, he relaxes and enjoys the calm, satisfied with the simple life he chose. For him, that moment is ideal, far from greater responsibilities. As time passes, a month goes by in this routine. After some time living peacefully, he runs out of money and realizes he has no choice but to return to accepting jobs. While reviewing the available missions, he finds a well-paid escort job and decides to accept it to support himself. Even finding the mission strange for its level, he decides to accept it because of the reward. After preparing, he heads to the agreed location and finds the carriage and the group he is supposed to escort. Upon arriving, he realizes something is not right when he sees who is part of the group. Among them, he recognizes the girl who insisted on recruiting him, which completely surprises him. She greets him enthusiastically and reveals that she secured his participation in the mission by signing him up herself. With no way out, he is surprised and questions the situation, realizing that his attempt to live peacefully may not be as simple as he imagined. She insists that their meeting is destiny and tries to officially include him in the group right there. He refuses again, denying any connection, while the others begin to realize that he is exactly the person she had been talking about. As they observe him, one of the girls evaluates that he may be stronger than he appears, despite his careless behavior. This irritates him, while Retina becomes confused upon realizing she does not even know his name, despite insisting so much, and the doubt about who he really is begins to grow. They finally introduce themselves. She shows herself to be lively and spontaneous, while he identifies himself as Jire, a low-level adventurer with simple habits. The contrast between them becomes clear, highlighting her energy and his disinterested attitude. The other members introduce themselves: Lena Anedaman, a high-level mage and group member, and Eve Dulcus, more reserved. With that, the group is complete, making it clear that he is now surrounded by much more experienced adventurers. Upon hearing Lena's name, he finds it strange and remembers someone with the same name, linked to a dangerous family of assassins. For a moment, he becomes alert, but decides not to dig deeper and tries to act normally. He decides to keep his distance, anticipating that dealing with her may bring trouble. Even so, Retina proposes to decide everything by vote to include him in the group. The others do not oppose, showing little interest, leaving the situation in her hands. Even with the vote decided in favor, he tries to prevent her from deciding everything alone. Retina insists, interpreting the situation as general approval, while pulling Eve to show support despite her lack of reaction, making it clear the decision is being forced. He still tries to refuse, arguing that it makes no sense for someone like him to join the group. Even so, Eve says it does not matter, which ends up being interpreted as approval. With that, the decision is practically sealed, and he realizes he is being dragged into the group against his will. While they wait, a high-level adventurer approaches and introduces himself confidently, showing familiarity with Retina. Her reaction indicates recognition, suggesting he has some importance and connection to the world of heroes. The adventurer approaches formally and treats the meeting as destiny, even without truly knowing Retina. While she shows confusion, he maintains his speech and reveals he has an interest in something, drawing attention to his real intentions. Upon noticing his presence, the adventurer changes his tone and shows disdain, questioning why a low-level adventurer is there. In response, the protagonist remains silent, staying calm despite the provocation. He responds simply that he only accepted the mission, without being shaken. The other, however, ignores the explanation and insists, emphasizing the difference in level and making his contempt clear by questioning why someone so inferior would be there. Even explaining that the mission did not require a high level, he is accused of trying to take advantage of the situation. The other adventurer openly shows contempt, reinforcing his aversion to low-level adventurers and intensifying the tension. The adventurer throws money on the ground in a provocative manner, treating him with disdain and telling him to pick it up. The attitude creates immediate tension, while Retina tries to intervene before the situation worsens. The adventurer makes it clear that if he picks up the money, he will be expelled from the mission, reinforcing his contempt for low-level adventurers. Even so, the protagonist remains calm and admits that he needs the money, without being intimidated by the provocation. He counters, stating that not all low-level adventurers are useless, reminding that many work hard, help others, and do what they can. Even acknowledging his own limitations, he makes it clear that there is value in that group, going against the others' contempt. He responds firmly, denying the insult and defending low-level adventurers, making it clear that he does not accept them being treated like trash. Even being insulted, he remains calm and acknowledges his own situation, admitting that he is out of money. Still, he decides not to submit to the provocation and makes it clear that he will not accept that kind of humiliation. He refuses to accept the money as humiliation and calmly returns the provocation, exposing that the other does not have as much authority as he appears to have within his own family. Then, he suggests using the money in a useful way for the mission, turning the situation in his favor without losing composure. He directly provokes him, revealing that the other only reached his position through family influence. The accusation hits hard, breaking the confident posture and making the atmosphere even more tense. The provocation has an immediate effect, and the adventurer attacks in anger. He advances with his sword, trying to strike him by surprise, while the protagonist remains alert and prepared to react. Before the strike could land, an unknown girl intervenes and blocks the attack with ease. With a firm presence, she orders him to stop and lower his sword, interrupting the conflict and drawing everyone's attention. After intervening so effortlessly, the girl reveals that she uses magic and demonstrates a high level, making it clear she is not an ordinary person. The protagonist realizes that she may have altered her own appearance and begins to suspect her true identity, increasing the mystery surrounding her. The adventurer tries to assert authority and demands explanations, invoking his family name to reinforce himself. However, the mysterious girl calmly interrupts him and reveals the truth. She is the client of the mission. By identifying herself as Fina, she surprises everyone and completely changes the situation. Fina shows disappointment upon seeing what is happening and considers canceling the contract, questioning the choice of the adventurer sent by the family. Even so, she controls the decision and states that she can make an exception, making it clear that his behavior will have consequences and will be reported. Fina ends the argument with the arrogant adventurer and turns her attention to the protagonist, making it clear that he will also be evaluated. Without giving him a chance to refuse, she decides that he will ride with her in the carriage, indicating that she still has matters to discuss directly with him. Retina celebrates excitedly upon seeing that he will go along, while he remains suspicious of the situation and fears further trouble. With everything decided, the group gathers and departs in the carriage, beginning the journey. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere becomes silent between the two. He introduces himself simply, while she dismisses formalities and takes control of the conversation, making it clear that she wants answers, not to give explanations. Fina gets straight to the point and asks about someone specific with black hair and a mask. He is surprised by the question but answers that he does not know anyone like that, although he begins to suspect that her interest may somehow be connected to himself. When he mentions the recent black-haired hero, he immediately catches her attention. Fina reacts intensely, convinced that she has finally found the person she was looking for, showing great expectation at that possibility. Fina becomes emotional and excited, believing she is about to find someone special whom she considers her destiny. Meanwhile, he watches in surprise, realizing how deeply invested she is in this search. Fina apologizes for her enthusiasm and regains her composure. She then explains that the journey to Atoll is meant to find the possible black-haired hero, although she is still not certain if it is truly the person she is searching for. He reassures her, saying there is no need to apologize, while she reveals that she hides her true identity. Upon noticing the presence of someone important in the carriage, he concludes that with that person there, the safety of the journey is guaranteed. Fina finds it strange that he is a low-level adventurer, since he does not seem like one. He responds lightly, saying he simply observes people well. Then he shifts the focus of the conversation and directly asks what kind of person she is looking for. Fina suddenly moves closer and decides to share part of her story, even though she is hesitant. She reveals that it all began when she was still a child, indicating that this memory holds deep meaning for her. Fina recalls with enthusiasm that she was saved as a child by someone she considers special, even keeping a ring as a memento and believing in a promise made at that moment. To her, that person became someone idealized, almost like a storybook hero. As she excitedly tells the story, time passes, and he only pretends to follow along, already somewhat lost in the long explanation. Fina reveals that she has high expectations for this black-haired hero, as she believes in the promise he made to become a hero. Realizing she has said too much, she becomes embarrassed and tries to apologize, while he observes, beginning to connect the pieces of the story. Remembering that he still had a snack stored away, he uses magic to open a storage space and retrieve some food. He then offers it to Fina, shifting the mood of the conversation in a simple and unexpected way. Fina is surprised to see him using spatial magic, something rare and difficult to master. She questions how he can do it, while he answers casually, as if it were nothing special, leaving her even more confused about his abilities. Fina recognizes the sweets and becomes excited, explaining that they are rare and highly valued. He, uninterested, ends up giving them to her, and she accepts enthusiastically, making the atmosphere between them lighter. While Fina enjoys the sweets, Retina watches from outside with curiosity. The mood becomes relaxed, and Fina suggests taking a break from the journey, which is promptly accepted by the group. During the break, Retina is delighted by the sweets, and the group enters a lighthearted mood. He ends up sharing with the others as well, and even those who seem distant begin to get involved, making the moment lighter before they continue the journey. Even after the break, the atmosphere with the adventurer remains tense. He still shows irritation, while the protagonist stays calm and leaves the money there, not caring. In the end, he lightly provokes him, suggesting that he reconsider his attitude. When left alone, the adventurer begins to waver, affected by the protagonist's behavior. Confused, he questions why he was treated calmly instead of with contempt, as if it stirred something from his past that he cannot ignore. During the journey, he eventually falls asleep and is later awakened to take his turn on watch. One of the adventurers calls him to switch shifts, maintaining the escort's organization during the night. After resting well and even receiving decent treatment, he takes on the night watch. During his shift, another adventurer warns him not to lower his guard and mentions that the client may be someone very important, suggesting the situation requires caution. During the watch, he notices something strange around them, but soon identifies Fina approaching calmly. She greets him quietly, initiating an unexpected conversation in the middle of the night. Fina appears during his shift and surprises him. Simply, she explains that she wanted to take the opportunity to experience standing watch at night, something new to her. With that, he accepts her presence, and the two begin to talk calmly. Fina insists that she can handle herself despite being a noble, asserting her own strength. He accepts without arguing, since, as the client, she can do as she pleases, and he decides to simply observe the situation calmly. Fina reveals that she sneaked away from the guards to be there. Seeing that the night is calm, he tries to send her back and take over alone, but she insists on staying and handling the watch, wanting to enjoy the experience. During the watch, something catches his attention in the darkness. Suspicious, he decides to investigate on his own, finding it strange that there are no monsters nearby. As he approaches, he realizes it is not a real threat, just a small and harmless creature, and quickly scares it away, confirming that the area is safe. As they get closer, he explains that the small creature is a drooping rabbit, something rare to see. Instead of danger, the scene turns into a light moment. Fina becomes enchanted by the little animal, admiring something like that for the first time, while he watches calmly, making the atmosphere much softer during the watch. He comments that the animal is valuable, but upon seeing her reaction, he gives up on the idea. In the end, Fina becomes relieved and excited, asking to touch the creature. Fina is delighted as she touches the animal, while he notices something strange about her pendant. She explains that the pendant is an important treasure that someone returned to her, and he begins to connect it to the past. She reveals that the pendant contains a picture of the person she is looking for, and admits that she still worries about him, even while trying to deny it. She fears that the person may already be dead, but says she still believes after years of waiting. He states that the person is still alive, which reassures her, and she thanks him, looking at him with greater admiration. He brushes off the praise with humor, calling himself lazy and saying he only wants a peaceful life without great ambitions. He explains that he prefers to work the minimum necessary and enjoy freedom, seeing it as the best lifestyle. Fina is surprised by this simple way of thinking, reflecting on the concept of freedom that he values. He says that if he could, he would also choose to live freely, without being bound by status. Then he reminds her that the decisions are hers and that she must follow her own path, even if it involves the person she is searching for. Fina accepts this with a slight smile, recognizing that she may be acting impulsively, but admits that if she finds that person, she might end up following her feelings. He encourages Fina to follow what she feels, reminding her that she has already waited years for this and that there is nothing wrong with being a little selfish. She accepts the idea lightly, joking about the situation, and comments on how strange it is to have opened up so much to him, creating a closer moment between the two during the watch. He shows himself willing to hear more about the person she is searching for, but asks for moderation. Fina agrees enthusiastically, and the two continue talking under the night, deepening the conversation. After a few days of travel without problems, everything proceeds smoothly, as the others deal with the monsters. As they leave the forest, they find a nearby village and decide to stop there to rest. Upon arriving at the village, something feels wrong. There are no guards at the gate and no sign of residents. They find a single resident, frightened and injured. When asked what happened, he reveals that everyone in the village was kidnapped, making the situation much more serious. The survivor explains that the attack happened a few days earlier. A group of men wearing black masks appeared along with several monsters, looted the village, and took all the residents, as well as food, goods, and valuables. They understand that there was no way to call for help. Communication magic did not reach far, and by the time help could arrive, it was already too late. The attack was well planned, with the invaders bypassing the guards by threatening a merchant and using his cargo to enter. From this, they conclude that these were not ordinary monsters, but organized kidnappers, possibly beast tamers. They realize that this was not a common attack. Even though slavery has been abolished on that continent, it still exists in others. The conclusion weighs heavily. The villagers were likely kidnapped to be sold, leaving the group shocked by the gravity of the situation. He explains that slaves still have high value in other continents, especially where there is conflict with demi-humans, reinforcing the idea of organized trafficking. He also realizes that the old man was not taken because he had no value. At that moment, Fina looks at him directly and presses him. What does he intend to do now? He remembers that the main mission is to escort the client, so the decision is hers. Fina understands the situation, realizes there is still a chance to catch the kidnappers, and without hesitation decides to act. Fina decides to act immediately and tries to use clairvoyance magic to locate the kidnappers. The others try to stop her, since it would reveal her identity, but she insists, saying that lives are at risk. He interrupts and shows a magical tracking item, saying that he can search without needing her magic. The others are surprised, as it is something rare, and he brushes it off, saying he obtained it by chance. Using the item, he locates the kidnappers in a cave in the forest, still nearby. After confirming it, Fina checks and realizes the information matches, and that the villagers are apparently still alive, easing the tension a bit before taking action. After analyzing the situation, they realize there are many enemies, more than 60, including strong monsters, making a direct confrontation risky. Given that, Fina suggests a safer plan. Infiltrate and rescue the villagers without drawing attention, since they could be used as hostages. Lena disagrees with the cautious plan and argues for a direct attack, wanting to eliminate everyone there to prevent them from escaping and committing the crime again. Meanwhile, the protagonist finds her intensity strange, questioning why she is so involved. Reddy joins the conversation with confidence and simplifies everything. To her, attacking head-on would be easy, almost effortless. She even points to the protagonist as the ideal hero to lead this direct assault. The others are left somewhat speechless, realizing she is treating the situation as much simpler than it actually is. They realize they misunderstood who the hero was, while Reddy simply smiles calmly, and the group moves toward the cave. Reddy launches the attack without hesitation, using offensive magic and pressuring the enemies, making it clear that no one will escape. The enemies react to the attack, releasing monsters against the group, while one of the allies activates their weapon and prepares to counterattack. Reddy advances in combat and cuts down enemies with ease, treating the fight as something simple. From a distance, they observe that the group is handling the situation well, as expected from experienced adventurers. While the battle unfolds, the protagonist stays out of it, using levitation magic to observe while hidden inside the cave. He reveals that he avoids fighting by choice and prefers not to get involved, leaving the combat to the others while watching everything from afar. Upon seeing the enemy up close, he notices the skull mask detail and immediately associates it with something from the past. It becomes clear that the symbol is no coincidence. It is the same group involved in a previous incident, bringing back a memory that puts him on alert. Sensing something wrong after recognizing the symbol, he becomes cautious and decides not to take risks. Even finding it bothersome, he activates detection magic to analyze the entire area and avoid surprises. He observes that the rescue of the villagers is going well and feels relieved. While the group keeps the enemies occupied, one of them tries to sneak in from another side, drawing the woman's attention as she notices the suspicious movement. An enemy appears from behind and attempts a surprise attack, but she reacts at the last moment and blocks the strike. The protagonist notices the danger and, unable to ignore it, finally decides to act. At the critical moment, the protagonist intervenes from a distance, using thread magic, marionette, immobilizing the enemy before the strike. Surprised by the unexpected help, she takes advantage of the opening and finishes the opponent, while he continues observing calmly from above. She begins to suspect him, even being D rank. His movements are precise, at the level of someone stronger. She also finds it strange that he does not use basic support or detection magic, realizing that he is hiding his true ability. He brushes it off with a vague explanation, saying he only has experience in immobilizing people, trying to seem ordinary. Meanwhile, Retina continues advancing and defeating enemies effortlessly. The group defeats the remaining enemies faster than expected and decides to regroup with the rescue team. Meanwhile, the protagonist quietly moves away, realizing that Retina's group has already left the area. He arrives at the place where the villagers were being held and realizes that the dead end is fake. Using magic, he reveals a hidden passage behind the wall and decides to move forward alone to deal with what remains. One of the kidnappers panics upon noticing the group's presence and complains that the plan was ruined by the hero. Even so, he stays calm and decides to retreat, saying he can try again elsewhere, while holding an important object that has not yet been lost. The protagonist intercepts the fleeing man and instantly paralyzes him with magic, preventing any reaction. Upon noticing the object he was carrying, he recognizes it as an unusual magical item, likely essential to the kidnapper's plan. He reveals that the item is a control artifact, capable of commanding multiple monsters at once. He explains that he managed to track it because the enemy left behind a magic circle and tried to hide it with concealment magic, but it was still discovered. He exposes the plan. The enemy tried to hide everything, but it was not enough. Even as an experienced mage, the kidnapper is pressured when the protagonist deduces the truth. They intended to use a large transfer magic circle to send the villagers to another continent, since transporting them normally would be impossible. He confirms that the magic circle was for transfer to another continent and destroys it with ease, stopping the plan. Then, he confronts the enemy directly, linking him to a specific group, the Skull Brigade, showing that he already knows who he is dealing with. The enemy is shocked upon realizing who he is facing. The protagonist, calm, confirms his suspicions and treats the situation as resolved, only lamenting that he underestimated the opponent, while the kidnapper tries to react in desperation. The enemy attempts to stand as the paralysis begins to fade, planning to escape. The protagonist calmly warns him not to move, but it is already too late. As he tries to act, the effect of the magic intensifies. The paralysis spreads poison through his body, causing him to collapse again, completely incapacitated. The defeated and desperate kidnapper begs for help. The protagonist approaches slowly, acknowledges the plea, and looks at him coldly. Instead of finishing him right there, he offers a condition. He will spare him only if he swears to abandon that path and surrender to the knights. The kidnapper immediately agrees and swears to change, pretending submission. The protagonist appears to believe him and approaches, relaxing his posture. However, in the next instant, the man betrays the promise and attempts a surprise attack, grabbing him suddenly. The protagonist reacts instantly to the treacherous attack, grabbing the enemy by the hair and staring at him up close, completely in control. Without hesitation, he makes it clear that he expected the betrayal and no longer trusts someone like him, ending any chance of mercy. He holds the enemy and coldly describes the cruel fate of slaves on the other continent, extreme suffering and total abandonment. In an almost ironic tone, he uses this to pressure him, making it clear that there is no escape from the consequences. He decides not to show mercy, turns his back, and walks away after judging the enemy. Even defeated, the kidnapper makes one last attempt, activating the artifact, the subjugation bell, which begins to react and summons the surrounding monsters. In desperation, the enemy activates the bell and orders the monsters to attack, determined to take the protagonist down with him. Surrounded by dozens of creatures, he remains calm and simply gives an order. Instantly, the monsters stop and open a path, showing that he has absolute control over the situation. Even surrounded, he walks calmly among the monsters, which instinctively retreat. The enemy realizes, terrified, that this presence is different, overwhelming. The scene reveals the secret. Behind his careless appearance, he is someone of absurd level, the true Demon King. Right after the revelation, he completely breaks the mood. He becomes embarrassed, covers his face, and panics for having exposed himself. When someone asks what happened, he tries to play it off, returning to normal behavior as if nothing had happened. He recalls that he had been chasing a group of human traffickers after following the transfer circle. But after everything that happened, he humorously admits that he ended up awakening a strange side of himself, treating it like a typical 8th grade syndrome, laughing at his own situation. The villagers celebrate their rescue with a banquet in gratitude. He decides to set the matter aside and enjoy the food, acting normally. Meanwhile, one of the girls quietly walks away, drawing slight attention, but he remains calm, focused on the moment. He notices the girl leaving and goes after her, trying to call her to eat. She reacts coldly, tells him to leave her alone, and clearly shaken, says she has no right to enjoy something like that, showing that she still carries guilt or inner conflict. She admits, with frustration, that she could not do anything, and that, even as the client, she was useless while the others fought and resolved everything. She felt like the only one without a role. He responds lightly, trying to ease the weight, saying that he also did nothing, joking that he just stayed relaxed, like a guard, observer. With that, he tries to reduce her guilt and show that the situation is not as serious as she thinks. She finally snaps, introducing herself as Cain, heir to an important family, and stating that she cannot be compared to just any adventurer. Upset, she accuses him of living without responsibilities and insists that her situation is different, making it clear that the pride and pressure she carries are much greater. She reveals what truly destroys her inside. She has always been treated as useless by her own family, called a disgrace for lacking talent. She has carried that weight forever and admits, painfully, that she believes it. At her emotional limit, she loses control and attacks him, releasing all that accumulated frustration. She reveals her past. She was born unable to use mana, something essential for swordsmen, so she could never keep up with her siblings. Because of that, she was treated as someone without value within her own family. In the end, she received a cruel gift, being sent out as a low-level adventurer, practically discarded. She explains that she joined a group of strong adventurers with only a symbolic rank, more decorative than real, probably to maintain the family's reputation. Even so, she saw it as a chance to prove her worth and earn a place where she belonged. The scene shifts to the beginning of the journey, when she is introduced to the group and welcomed as a newcomer, still carrying that hope of achieving results and changing her situation. She recalls that, even as a low-rank member, she found a place in that group. Spending time with them as companions made her happy and gave meaning to her journey. In the end, she returns to the present still shaken, but lets out a somewhat shy comment about him, calling him an idiot without the same harshness as before. She remembers a moment that marked her. When she had trouble with her equipment and apologized, expecting criticism, the leader simply helped without asking for anything in return. He said that, as companions, it was natural to help each other. That simple act made her realize that she had finally found a place where she was treated as an equal, reinforcing how much that group meant to her. The memory shatters. The same group that called themselves companions begins to laugh at her and belittle her, saying she was just someone who financed everything. She is shocked upon realizing the truth behind their words, and overwhelmed by pain, she runs away, repeating why, unable to understand why she was treated that way. She remembers being humiliated and treated as useless by her own group. In the present, she collapses to the ground. He does not pressure her, simply says he is going to eat and gives her space to decide. In the end, she stands up and returns, accepting to get a little closer. He walks away simply, asking only that she try the food. Alone, holding the package, she becomes confused and asks why he cares about her, remembering that he is just a low-rank adventurer. He remains calm, saying that his situation is not a problem and that living simply is enough. Even so, he jokes that he is curious to try sweets from nobles. After that, everything returns to normal. The group continues the journey peacefully after resolving the incident. He looks for a quiet place to rest and take a nap during the break. Meanwhile, the girl excitedly explores the river, finding fish and already thinking about food. The girl catches a fish, all excited, happy to secure lunch, while the others have fun in the water. When he wakes up, he is faced with the three of them playing in the river and is completely caught off guard, not knowing where to look or how to act in that unexpected situation. The girls continue enjoying themselves in the river, commenting on how nice it is to wash there, and even talking about cleaning magic. In the middle of it, the smallest one gets distracted when the fish escapes and runs after it, keeping the mood light and relaxed. He realizes the situation has become complicated. He just wanted to rest, but ended up surrounded by the girls in the river. To avoid trouble, he uses camouflage magic and stays completely still, hidden on the ground, trying not to be discovered and to avoid any misunderstanding. One of the girls comments that the mission's client is a bit different, despite being a noble, since she prefers to stay alone because of her family situation. The others join the conversation and reveal that they also have similar ties to nobility, including one who says she was adopted, showing that none of them live exactly as expected for someone of that status. One of them finds it strange that the girl said she didn't want to get close to anyone, since she is now talking with them. Slightly embarrassed, she reacts, and the mood becomes light when the others say that makes them happy. Deep down, it suggests that she is starting to open up, even without realizing it. She becomes worried about someone seeing them, but another reassures her that everything is safe. She explains that she used detection magic to confirm no one is nearby, and even created a barrier, so no one could enter. Even so, she admits that there is always a small chance that something unexpected could happen. He hears that only someone with high-level disguise magic could hide there, and becomes nervous upon realizing that this is exactly his case. While trying to stay calm, the girls change the subject, and one of them curiously asks if he has someone he likes, leaving him even more flustered. The girls continue chatting lightly. One says she has no one in mind, while another comments that this seems suspicious. In the middle of it, a more sincere view appears. She reveals that she was taught she needs to take care of herself and only show her true self to someone special, implying that this came from someone important to her. They joke about the idea of someone special, suggesting that she might already have someone in mind. The conversation remains light but takes on a more intimate tone, and one of them admits feeling envious of the possibility of living a simple and normal life. In the end, they raise the possibility of someone appearing and question what she would do, making the situation more reflective. She responds intensely, saying she would make the person regret it, showing a darker and more determined side. The others react with surprise at the exaggeration, and shortly after, someone finds it strange that they heard a voice, creating a slight sense of suspicion in the air. He panics, realizing the situation is getting out of control and that he could be discovered at any moment. The girls begin to grow suspicious, and he understands that his position has already been revealed. With no alternative, he decides to act before he is found. A cute little creature suddenly appears and grabs the girls' attention, completely breaking the tension. While they become confused looking at it, the protagonist takes advantage of the distraction and decides to escape unnoticed. They pick up the little creature and become enchanted, realizing it is something rare. While playing with it, they decide to change lunch to meat and fish, completely forgetting any previous suspicion. He panics because the transformation has a time limit and is about to end. The disguise begins to fail, but the girls still find the little creature cute and do not suspect anything. He manages to escape without being discovered and feels relieved, realizing how risky that was. Soon after, he notices something strange in the distance, with several people gathered, and becomes curious about what is happening there. She appears in a light and almost ethereal atmosphere, showing interest in the situation and thanking the spirits. The moment carries a more intimate and mysterious feeling, as if something important is about to happen next. He observes silently, surprised to see her interacting naturally with the spirits. The scene feels almost unreal, like something out of a story, and the way she moves in that environment gives off a serene and almost divine image, leaving a strong impression on him. He catches himself observing her too closely, noticing her appearance and the way she moves, almost hypnotized. Soon after, he realizes this and panics, thinking he is being strange or invasive, and quickly tries to distance himself. He moves away from the area using magic and, still somewhat shaken, wonders if someone like her has ever been part of their group before. Shortly after, the scene shifts, showing that a few days have already passed since the escort began, with the group following their routine normally. The group is relaxed, joking and making bets, even during the mission. One accuses another of cheating, while the protagonist watches from the outside, slightly bothered, thinking they are taking the escort too lightly and forgetting the risks. He begins to think the journey is nearing its end, feeling calm as the group moves forward. Suddenly, one of the scouts returns, running in panic, warning that something has gone very wrong. The scout arrives in shock, barely able to speak, until he reveals the news. The city has been taken over by monsters. The scene cuts to show skeletons in chaos, confirming that everything has spiraled out of control. The city is in chaos, overrun by undead such as skeletons and zombies. Dark energy dominates everything, but they realize the creatures cannot cross the city's barrier. They understand that the invasion was not natural, but caused by someone controlling the undead. Since there are so many, it is impossible without someone behind it. Even so, one of the girls tries to remain calm, believing that the civilians may still be safe while hiding. One of them still tries to believe someone may have survived, but another cuts that hope, stating that given the situation, there is no way there are survivors. Faced with the chaos, Kane suggests retreating immediately, but is confronted and treated as inexperienced. The others insist on staying, minimizing the danger while he realizes the situation is far more serious than they admit. They discuss what to do. Fighting now would only reduce losses but not solve the problem. Despite the barrier still containing the monsters, a real concern arises if it falls. The horde will advance directly toward them, making the situation much worse. They conclude they need to buy time for a rescue, since if the monsters advance, they will reach other nearby regions. Realizing his family is at risk, one of them decides he cannot run and chooses to stay and fight. They begin organizing themselves. They ask one of them to go for reinforcements, while the rest stay. However, the girl refuses to flee, and also decides to remain, saying she needs to check something, surprising the others. He admits he is afraid, but explains that running away is not an option when important people are at risk. For him, it is more frightening to abandon those he loves than to face danger. Even insecure, he begins to see this as a chance to change, to be useful, and finally be accepted. With that, he decides to volunteer to help, surprising the others. The group accepts him, encouraged by his decision. The protagonist also decides to stay and fight, since no one intends to retreat, making it clear they will face it together. Even nervous, he decides to fight as well. Then, he begins thinking of a plan. Realizing that defeating the monsters is not enough, the real target is whoever is controlling everything, and that person must be nearby. She comes up with an idea and suggests using more advanced detection magic. Without hesitation, she begins removing her own magical artifact, ignoring the others' warnings, determined to act and locate the enemy. She introduces herself and decides to act on her own, using clairvoyance to find who is behind everything. She activates her ability and reveals her true identity, a princess. She explains that she had been hiding it, but decided to act given the situation, leaving everyone surprised as they understand who she really is. She is revealed as someone very influential and beloved, as well as extremely skilled in detection magic. The protagonist feels awkward upon realizing who she is, while the others worry about the risk of her exposing her identity in such a dangerous situation. She remains calm, asks for silence, and decides to act. With the others' approval, she begins using her clairvoyance to locate whoever is behind the invasion. She summons the spirits and activates her clairvoyance, asking for power to see beyond and find the one responsible for the invasion. Her magic spreads throughout the entire city, creating a vast and precise search field. The protagonist is impressed by the level of control and power, realizing that she is far more skilled than she appears. He remembers that he once tried to learn that magic but gave up because it was too complex. Even so, watching her, he begins to understand how it works and tries to replicate the structure of the spell on his own. He manages to replicate the clairvoyance magic by himself, surprising even himself. Feeling something behind him, he finds it strange but quickly tries to brush it off, as if he does not fully believe what he just did. He detects a presence that even the princess's clairvoyance could not perceive. It is a much more powerful enemy, completely hiding its presence. While no one notices anything, the monster itself is already observing everything and decides to begin the attack. The enemy reveals itself, one of the 4 great servants of the Demon King. It appears confidently, despising humans and declaring that it will eliminate them right there, showing that the threat is far greater than they imagined. The group is caught off guard when the enemy appears above them. The princess is confused, since her magic should detect any threat, but the monster reveals that it completely concealed itself, mocking their attempt to find it. The monster provokes them, saying that since they could not find it, it came to them. Without wasting time, one of the adventurers launches a direct attack, trying to strike the enemy before it reacts. The attack has no effect. The monster easily blocks it and dismisses the strike, treating the sword as useless. It activates a barrier, showing that normal attacks will not work, and making the gap in power clear. The monster counterattacks instantly, piercing the adventurer with ease. It treats the human as inferior, demonstrating overwhelming power and making it clear that it is on another level. The princess immediately uses healing magic, trying to save the wounded. Even so, they realize the attack was extremely powerful and that without quick help, he will not survive for long. The monster continues provoking, confident in its superiority. Even so, the girl advances without hesitation, wielding her sacred sword to face the enemy, although she already feels something strange about the weapon. The monster recognizes the sacred sword and realizes she is the hero. The protagonist plays along with the provocation, exaggerating and drawing attention, trying to buy time. The enemy understands the intention and decides to stop playing and take the fight seriously. The monster notices that the protagonist had been secretly gathering mana and reveals it effortlessly. Not wanting to prolong the fight, it decides to end everything quickly, confident that doing so will earn recognition from the Demon King. The monster reveals that it has already defeated the hero mentioned by the Demon King and that it was responsible for the chaos in the city. It boasts about having achieved everything they wanted, making the scale of the threat clear. The princess tries to deny it, but the monster insists and shows proof. Seeing it with her own eyes, she realizes it might be true, falling into shock at the situation. The revelation completely shakes the princess. She falls into despair at the thought that her hero has died. As she loses focus, the monster treats everything coldly, saying the fight should already be over. The monster uses magic to increase gravity, making everyone heavy and nearly immobile. With the group trapped, it declares that now no one will be able to escape. Even under the crushing gravity, the group cannot react. The protagonist realizes he can no longer hide as a weak adventurer and understands that he needs to act, even against his own will. Even under the pressure of gravity, he manages to stand up, drawing the monster's attention. This reveals that his resistance and power are far beyond normal. The monster increases the gravity even more, but nothing happens to him. Surprised, the enemy tries to understand and suspects some special item, while the protagonist casually denies it. The monster changes strategy and creates an extremely dangerous dark magic, launching a sphere of shadow energy at him. Realizing the danger, the protagonist tries to react, but already understands that this attack is far more serious than the previous ones. The attack explodes, but he simply walks through it without taking damage. While the others are in shock, he emerges surrounded by flames, completely calm, telling the enemy to stop shouting, showing he is on another level. He remains standing, surrounded by flames, while the others lie fallen and confused. Calmly, he reveals that this is nothing to him, having already faced something much worse before, making it clear how absurd his level is. He simply extinguishes the flames as if they were nothing, saying they were only bothering him. The monster falls into shock, unable to understand how its attack was nullified so easily, realizing it is facing something beyond normal. He reacts with total disdain, dodging and deflecting the attack with a simple strike, as if it were nothing. Then, he unleashes a powerful blast of wind, beginning a counterattack effortlessly. The monster begins to panic, unable to understand what it is facing. Meanwhile, the protagonist remains calm and decides he has no choice, preparing a spell he would rather not use. The monster casts a supreme spell, creating a massive mass of dark energy capable of destroying everything around. Faced with such an overwhelming threat, the protagonist remains calm, ready to respond, while everyone around feels the despair of the situation. With complete composure, he activates an ability and simply nullifies the colossal spell descending from the sky. The threat disappears as if it had never existed, leaving everyone completely speechless before such absurd power. The monster collapses entirely, unable to understand what just happened, questioning everything in shock. The protagonist, completely calm, responds casually, as if he had done nothing special, leaving an even greater mystery about what he truly is. He notices something obvious in the middle of the chaos and casually remarks that the enemy is already out of mana. The monster panics, refusing to accept that it could lose to a human, while the protagonist advances with his usual calm, as if the fight were already decided. With not enough mana left to fight directly, the monster resorts to desperation. It uses the remaining power to control another person's body, turning them into a hostage. Even in desperation, the victim tries to resist, while the enemy provokes, thinking it has finally gained an advantage. He ignores the threat and coldly says that the hostage is not even his friend, leaving the enemy speechless. The monster becomes confused by the response, trying to understand their relationship. The protagonist calmly explains that he barely knows the person, at most a mission acquaintance, while the hostage himself complains about the situation, slightly breaking the tension. The monster tries to pressure him, threatening to take more hostages and even the entire city. But the protagonist remains cold and says that it does not matter, since, in his view, everyone there is probably already dead, making the statement heavy and unsettling. He analyzes the situation coldly and understands that the barrier is reversing life and death within the area, explaining the state of the city. Unshaken, he even criticizes the enemy, who tries to provoke him by asking if he wants to save everyone, but realizes he is not dealing with someone ordinary. Hearing that there may still be salvation, she panics and begs through tears for him to save everyone, showing that she still believes, even in the middle of the chaos. The monster notices her emotional weakness and provokes, suggesting that everything depends on the protagonist. Desperate, she declares that she would do anything if that person could come back to life, making it clear how far she is willing to go. She continues begging, making it clear how much it means to her. The protagonist notices the contradiction in the story. Someone who should have been protected ended up dying and understands the situation better. Then he looks at her and confirms, if necessary, she would really do anything. Unmoved by her desperation, he simply points to the sky and activates an ability. Energy begins to rise and concentrate, changing the environment, while he tells her to just watch, indicating that he already has the solution in hand. Suddenly, everything returns to normal. People reappear alive, as if nothing had happened. The monster is shocked upon realizing its barrier has been nullified, while the protagonist simply smiles, as if it were something simple. He explains casually that he just changed the conditions of the barrier, reversing the undead effect, restoring the city and bringing everyone back. For him, it was something simple which makes the enemy even more incredulous. Even cornered, the monster tries to negotiate and threaten, but in an unexpected moment, she offers to die in place of the others, refusing to be a burden and shocking everyone with her decision. She breaks down emotionally, saying she has never been important to anyone and does not care about dying. But it is clear that it is not courage. It is accumulated pain and a sense of worthlessness, making the moment even heavier. He interrupts the situation at the last second, and even calling her selfish, says something unexpected. He still needs her. This completely breaks the moment and catches her off guard. He acts at the final instant, blocks the attack, and declares that he will not let her die. The threat disappears, control fades, and everything returns to normal, while he simply sighs as if he had resolved something trivial. The danger passes and the mood shifts instantly. A man throws himself at him in relief, almost crying, thanking him for being alive and surprised by the strength he had hidden. Meanwhile, she remains silent, still processing everything that happened. She reflects that even weakened, defeating that enemy so easily is absurd. Meanwhile, he tries to act normal, even slightly regretful for exposing himself, while the others remain impressed by what he did. He relaxes for a moment, thinking it is over, but suddenly feels a heavy presence. Something strong emerges, with a clear intent to kill, and he realizes the target is not him, creating an immediate sense of danger. He reacts on instinct and protects her from the attack, embracing her to absorb the impact. While the others try to understand what happened, he focuses only on her, asking if she is okay, showing that he noticed the danger before anyone else. He assures her that she is fine and tries to downplay it, but when he removes his clothing, he reveals old scars, drawing her attention as she begins to suspect who he really is. The narrative returns to the past, showing the girl's childhood in the palace. She lives carefree, playing and causing small trouble, always protected by her father's affection, who spoiled her regardless of her mischief. Despite her cheerful nature, the girl begins to be rejected by other children because of her origin. Without understanding why, she finds herself isolated and begins questioning her own situation, seeking comfort alone while feeling the absence of her busy father. Feeling lonely, the girl begins to run away from the castle and finds comfort by creating a refuge in the forest. During one of these escapes, while exploring the place, she ends up encountering someone unknown, changing the course of her story. In the forest, the girl finds a mysterious boy training alone, wearing a mask and counting his movements. Curious, she watches from hiding, intrigued by his presence. When he realizes he is not alone, he reacts immediately, treating it as a possible threat. When she reveals herself, the girl surprises the boy, who realizes she is just a child. He tries to send her away for safety, but she reacts stubbornly, claiming that the place belongs to her, starting a conflict between the two. The girl insists that the place is her refuge and tries to drive him away, but nothing works. Frustrated, she realizes her actions have no effect and begins to question why, eventually recognizing that she may have been rude for the first time. After the disagreement, the boy calms her by telling stories, capturing her attention and trust. Over time, she becomes enchanted by those narratives and begins to get closer to him, creating a bond that transforms her loneliness into companionship. Even still shaken, the girl becomes attached to the boy and begins wanting to see him again. At nightfall, they say goodbye, setting a new meeting, establishing the beginning of a friendship that gives meaning to her days. From that day on, the two begin meeting frequently at the hideout, strengthening their bond. The girl becomes fascinated by the boy's stories, especially about an ideal princess, and begins to wish to be like that figure, while he reacts directly, not taking the idea seriously. The peaceful days between them continue, creating a light and happy routine that the girl wishes to keep forever. However, just as she begins to believe in that, the presence of someone unexpected appears, indicating a sudden change in that reality. As she goes to her hideout as usual, the girl is intercepted by suspicious men. They quickly realize her noble origin and decide to take her, putting her in danger and shattering the peace she had found. Immobilized, the girl tries to react, but cannot deal with multiple enemies at once. Without control of the situation, she is attacked and ends up injured, realizing real danger for the first time. With no strength to react, the girl is overpowered by the criminals, who decide to sell her instead of asking for ransom. Faced with the threat, she falls into despair, unable to escape, crying out for help as the situation slips completely out of her control. At the most critical moment, the boy appears before the criminals and interrupts their actions. In an instant, he takes down the subordinates with ease and faces the remaining leader, completely changing the course of the situation. The confrontation begins immediately, with the leader reacting and attacking without hesitation. The boy responds in kind, blocking the blows and facing his opponent head-on, starting an intense battle. During the fight, the opponent questions the boy's intentions, trying to shake his resolve. Even so, he remains firm, showing no hesitation, making it clear that he chose to walk that path despite having other options. When questioned, the criminal reveals his twisted worldview, stating that he lives that way by choice and for pleasure. Faced with this, the boy realizes there is no reason or possibility for negotiation, understanding that the confrontation cannot be avoided. The clash intensifies, with the enemy revealing a mindset based on strength. Unshaken, the boy blocks the attack and makes it clear that he has already understood enough about who he is facing, reinforcing his decision to defeat him. Taking advantage of an opening, the boy counterattacks and puts the opponent at a disadvantage. Even during the fight, he imposes a condition, offering the enemy a chance to surrender, showing that he still maintains a sense of justice in the midst of battle. Overpowered, the criminal yields to the pressure and agrees to surrender, promising to abandon his life of crime and change. Faced with this, the boy observes his response, evaluating whether that surrender is truly sincere. Even after the surrender, the situation shifts when other criminals act from behind. While the boy is distracted, they advance again and put the girl at risk, showing that the danger is not over. The criminals regain control of the situation by directly threatening the girl, forcing the boy to stop. Faced with the immediate danger, he is cornered, unable to act while her life is used as a hostage. The leader exposes his lack of honor and reveals that he never intended to keep the agreement. Realizing this, the boy understands that his hesitation was exploited, being forced to back down in the face of the direct threat against the girl, while the enemies maintain control. Unable to react freely, the boy ends up being struck by the enemies and knocked down. Even injured, he still shows resistance, but the situation turns against him as the criminals regain control of the confrontation. After knocking him down, the leader approaches and tries to recruit him, recognizing his strength and offering him a position among his men. Even at a disadvantage, the boy is seen as someone valuable, turning the confrontation into an unexpected proposal. Even wounded, the boy refuses the offer and tries to react, but is struck again. The leader makes it clear that he controls the situation and forces a decision, pressuring him while pushing him to the limit. Even under pressure, the boy stands up and shows a sudden change. Without hesitation, he ignores the threat and indicates that the situation no longer restrains him, surprising the opponent and shifting the course of the battle. In an instant, the boy neutralizes the enemies around him, shocking the leader. Acknowledging his previous mistake, he shows a change in attitude and begins to act with total determination, completely turning the tide of the fight. The boy recognizes his shift in mindset and embraces a new determination. Abandoning any hesitation, he decides to go all the way to achieve his goal, facing the enemy with a much colder and more decisive posture. The boy activates an ability that paralyzes the opponent, limiting his movements. Even recognizing the limitations and risks of this technique, he chooses to use it at that moment, solidifying his advantage and taking full control of the confrontation. With the decision made, the boy abandons any hesitation and advances without mercy. Completely overpowering the enemy, he ends the confrontation decisively, sealing the opponent's fate. After ending the fight, the boy returns to the girl's side and tends to her injuries, ensuring that she is safe. He reassures her, hiding the harshness of what happened, while the situation finally calms down. With everything resolved, the boy justifies his actions in a simple way, and the girl accepts his explanation. However, shortly after, she shows signs of weakness, indicating that something is still not right. Noticing her condition, the boy decides to take her back home, ensuring her safety. Along the way, she shows admiration for him, while he admits that he is not yet what he wants to be, but affirms his determination to become someone capable of protecting others in the future. During the journey, the girl supports the boy's dream, creating an even stronger bond between them. Over time, this feeling grows, and she begins to see him as someone special, continuing to meet him frequently and deepening that connection. Shortly after, the boy suddenly collapses due to excessive use of magic. Seeing him fall, the girl panics and runs back to the castle for help, trying to save him at any cost. Desperate, the girl begs for help, wanting to save him no matter what. Against all odds, he survives, and after recovering, the two resume their routine, as if that moment had strengthened their bond even more. Sometime later, the boy decides to leave, stating that he will no longer be able to return to that place. He reveals that he must follow his own path, tied to a greater goal, and says goodbye, refusing to take her with him despite her insistence. Before leaving, the boy gives her a magical ring, asking her to keep it safe. He promises to return after fulfilling his goal, leaving her with one last hope and marking their farewell with a symbol of the bond between them. Moved, the girl promises to wait for him, believing in his return. The boy departs after the farewell, and over time, stops appearing, marking the beginning of a long wait. Determined to find him again, the girl dedicates herself to improving, refining her magic and behavior to become someone worthy of that ideal. Even so, years pass, and after a long wait, he never returns. After years without news, the girl continues searching for him without success. Until, amid her growing anxiety, a rumor appears about a black-haired hero in another kingdom, reigniting her hope of finally finding him. While recalling the past, she realizes she ignored obvious signs right in front of her. The scar and other details finally fall into place, leading to the conclusion that the person she was searching for had always been by her side. Faced with the revelation, the atmosphere changes, and she begins to look at him differently, recognizing in him what she had not seen before. Her sincerity surprises him, creating an unexpected moment between them. Upon finally recognizing who he is, the girl cannot contain her emotions and hugs him, certain that she has found the person she waited for so long. Meanwhile, in parallel, news of a recent battle emerges, indicating that he was involved in much larger events during his absence. While the hero was active in another kingdom, he ended up being unjustly imprisoned and had to erase traces of his actions, including memories and consequences of what happened. Despite resolving the crisis and restoring peace, he now faces a new serious problem that he must confront. After everything that happened, the girl finally expresses her feelings without hesitation, wishing for a future by his side. For her, the long wait comes to an end, turning that reunion into the fulfillment of a bond that began in childhood. After the reunion, the girl moves forward without hesitation, treating their future as something already decided. While she naturally envisions a life together, the boy is caught off guard and tries to understand the situation, revealing the contrast between her conviction and his confusion. She insists on their connection by recognizing the scar as proof, but the boy does not remember anything from the past. While he shows confusion, it becomes clear that his memories were lost, even though he is the person she had been searching for. Reflecting on it, the boy explains that he saved many people in the past, but cannot remember any of them. He reveals that he acted masked during his training and battles, which prevented him from clearly seeing who he helped. Thus, it becomes clear that he may have crossed paths with her without ever recognizing or remembering it. Hearing all this, he clarifies that his past actions were driven by his own goals, not by promises or feelings connected to her. The girl realizes the disconnect between what she lived and what he remembers, while he tries to keep his distance, making it clear that the bond between them is not as simple as she believed. She insists on getting closer, treating the situation lightly and provocatively, while trying to understand his feelings. Faced with this, the boy questions his own past actions, reflecting on the real reason he saved her and what it truly meant. The girl confesses intensely and possessively, making it clear that she wants him only for herself. Meanwhile, the boy is taken aback, realizing how much the situation has spiraled and how determined she is, even becoming slightly intimidated by her conviction. The boy asks her to return the ring, while she reveals that she sees it as a symbol of commitment between them. Even without wanting to act that way, he decides to intervene by force, making it clear that he needs the object for a more urgent reason. He approaches and embraces her, creating an intimate moment that surprises her. At the same time, he implies that he no longer needs promises or symbols, indicating that their relationship has taken a more direct and concrete turn. Surprised and unable to resist the situation, she ends up giving in, accepting what he proposes. Taking advantage of the moment, he retrieves the ring, resolving what he needed, while leaving her confused by the way everything happened. After recovering the ring, he tries to distance himself, while she insists on following him. Even in the face of his refusal, she maintains the idea that the two are now together, accepting the situation naturally, while he remains visibly unsettled by her intensity. After leaving the place, he decides to move away quickly to avoid further complications. Along the way, he plans to use the ring to alter his appearance and continue without being recognized, while thinking about his next steps and trying to organize the situation. Elsewhere, a character makes an unexpected decision about her own position, accepting a change that surprises those around her. Even though it is something unusual, she shows conviction, treating the choice as part of a greater plan. She explains that she decided to start over from zero to truly test her own strength. Even having the ability for a higher level, she chooses to begin from the lowest rank, seeking to grow genuinely and understand her limits. She decides to follow her own path, believing that only after becoming stronger will she be able to stand by his side. Motivated by past words, she begins acting on her own, finding a new group and starting her own journey. Even in the face of formalities and expectations tied to her family, she decides to move forward without being bound by them. Ignoring bureaucratic details, she keeps her focus on her decision and continues ahead without looking back. She abandons the weight of her family name and assumes only her own identity. With that, she decides to begin a new phase, setting out on her first journey as an adventurer and following her own path. As the story shifts setting, the focus turns to the Demon King's castle. There, a subordinate figure tries to warn their leader about something urgent, indicating that new events are about to unfold. The scene reveals one of the demon leaders, who questions her subordinate's behavior upon seeing him in desperation. While maintaining authority, she shows impatience, making it clear that something abnormal is happening within their territory. The subordinate reports the failure of the mission, admitting that the situation got out of control and brought serious consequences. Even while trying to justify his actions, he ends up revealing that he caused an even greater disaster, completely worsening the situation. Faced with the confusion, the demon leader falls into despair upon realizing the scale of the problem created. As she understands what truly happened, she reacts in an exaggerated and frustrated way, making it clear that everything has completely spiraled out of control. Upon hearing the full report, the leader panics upon discovering that an extremely powerful human interfered and reversed the situation in the city. Realizing who it might be, she associates it with the figure she fears the most, reliving the trauma of a past encounter and falling into complete despair. Tired of all the chaos and responsibilities, the demon leader decides to abandon the conflict and follow a lighter path. Determined to live without regrets, she chooses to leave everything behind and go out to enjoy life however she wants. Elsewhere, a new character enters the scene upon identifying the protagonist. Convinced of who he is, she shows intense enthusiasm and growing obsession, determined to get closer to him at any cost. The new character reveals her desire to face the protagonist, driven by the excitement of combat. Even recognizing that she is not yet at his level, she decides to approach him first, postponing her original mission and seeking a way to meet him. The narrative expands into a new setting, bringing together different characters and pointing toward the next destination of the story. With this, new encounters and conflicts begin to take shape, signaling the beginning of a new phase in the journey. Back to routine, the protagonist prefers to ignore recent events and enjoy the calm. Even with invitations and possibilities around him, he chooses to rest, valuing comfort above anything else. When he finally tries to rest, the protagonist is reminded of everything that happened recently, from intense battles to unexpected encounters. Realizing that he never truly managed to relax, it becomes clear that his peace is constantly being interrupted by new events. To escape the princess, the protagonist uses the ring to change his appearance and quickly flees, crossing into another country within a few days. During the escape, he recalls everything that has happened recently, from battles to unexpected encounters, explaining his accumulated exhaustion. Upon arriving at his destination, he decides to simply rest, trying to recover his energy. But it is clear that his calm routine continues to be interrupted by the consequences of everything he has experienced. The girl tries to wake him, but he does not respond. He reveals that his ability has evolved, putting him into an even deeper sleep, practically impossible to wake from, treating the situation with complete indifference. He introduces the elf who accompanies him, revealing that despite her youthful appearance, she is much older and more experienced. He also explains that in the past, she was once extremely powerful, while he was still training and ended up getting involved in trouble that made him a target. In the past, she fails her mission after hesitating and breaking into tears. He calms her with sweets, and the situation changes, leading her to grow attached to him and abandon the assassination attempt. In the present, he explains that Char now owns a pastry shop. Upon meeting her, he acts naturally and familiarly, but the situation quickly becomes awkward, leaving her surprised by his closeness. After the awkward moment, he apologizes, while she complains about how he acts without thinking. Soon after, information appears that someone with black hair was seen in the shop, raising suspicion. Even so, he tries to deny the possibility, thinking it cannot be the person he is looking for. They talk casually, with her thanking him for his help and support with the shop ideas. In a relaxed tone, she even suggests that he stay there without worrying about anything, showing how comfortable she feels with his presence. She gives him a special invitation to a magic tournament, explaining that she thought he would like the opportunity. He shows interest, but soon realizes there are requirements to participate, such as a minimum rank or recommendation, and begins to doubt whether he can actually join. Upon checking the invitation, he realizes that his name is officially registered as a participant, with affiliation to the Magic Academy, and even a formal recommendation, something he does not remember obtaining. Confused by the situation, he is then surprised by the arrival of an unexpected acquaintance, who introduces himself ready to explain everything. The visitor reveals himself as Aldia Audis, an old acquaintance of Jire who now holds the position of acting director of the Royal Magic Academy. He explains that he was invited as a guest, treating the situation casually, while Jire and Char are surprised by the position and influence he seems to have. Char excitedly reveals that she asked the academy director to write a recommendation for Jire. Upon realizing this, he steps aside to confront the cat directly, irritated and confused about being entered into the tournament without even knowing. Jire confronts the cat, annoyed at being placed in the tournament without his consent. The director tries to downplay it, saying it was a favor and suggesting he might have changed, but Jire makes it clear he does not want to get involved. Even so, the cat insists that the registration is practically confirmed and even declares that he is now affiliated with the academy, completely ignoring his refusal. The director finally reveals his true interest. He wants to study Jire's powers in exchange for keeping him close. Jire refuses immediately, with no patience for that kind of proposal, and decides to leave and announce that he will not participate in the tournament. Meanwhile, it is implied that their relationship dates back several years, from when they met in Magica's Maya. Their past is shown. The director met Jire when he saved a villager with impressive magic, and since then tried to recruit him persistently to the academy. At first, the interest was academic, but it turned into an obsession to study his power, which made Jire completely distance himself. The director reveals that he was happy to find him again, and even searched for him thinking he might have died. He also explains that the confusion about the black-haired person happened because Jire was in disguise. Despite the lighter mood, Jire makes it clear he has no interest in becoming a teacher at the academy, preferring to follow his own path without being tied down. Jire decides to cancel his participation in the tournament and tells Char directly. Her reaction is immediate. She is shocked and nearly cries, unable to understand his decision, while he is also surprised by the intensity of her response. Char breaks down emotionally, crying and apologizing for acting without thinking of him. She admits she was selfish for forcing him into something he did not want, while Jire tries to calm her, making it clear he only wants to avoid doing something against his own will. Seeing Char crying like that, Jire panics and completely changes his attitude, saying it was a joke and that he will participate in the tournament after all. Her reaction changes instantly. Relieved, she smiles again, happy that she did not truly bother him. While Char is happy with the decision, the cat watches satisfied, as if everything went exactly as planned. Soon after, Jire receives the news that not only will he participate in the tournament, but he has also been officially placed as a teacher at the academy. With no way out, he realizes he has been completely tricked, trapped both in the competition and in a role he clearly did not want. Even after being dragged into the tournament and becoming a teacher against his will, Jire tries to enjoy the moment, relaxing outdoors and valuing the calm. Deep down, he just wants a peaceful life, even if reality keeps pushing him into chaos. Unable to completely escape the academy, Jire ends up taking on an alternative role. He becomes a sort of caretaker, responsible for activating and maintaining magical tools scattered throughout the place. Since these tools require a lot of mana, the work would normally take days, but he finishes everything in a short time. With that, he fulfills his duty quickly and gains freedom to relax, basically turning an obligation into just another excuse to live peacefully. While enjoying the easy life, Jire completely avoids teaching, and even takes pride in it, since he prefers to win without doing anything. However, his break ends when a student recognizes him and confronts him, annoyed by someone clearly avoiding responsibilities in that place. After being scolded, Jire leaves, trying to return to his calm routine. Meanwhile, the student who confronted him finally manages to focus, but struggles with an extremely difficult book, making it clear that life at the academy is far from easy. The students begin arguing among themselves, complaining about the theoretical classes and the difficulty of the materials. Their frustration with the academy's teaching becomes evident, as they feel a lack of practical learning and believe they could improve more on their own than by just following books. Jire observes the students and realizes that, despite their complaints, they are taking their studies seriously and have clear goals. Even so, when the idea of someone more experienced teaching them practically arises, he tries to avoid responsibility, pretending it has nothing to do with him. One of the students decides to try and practice without mastering the technique, believing it will work out. Even insecure, he activates the magic clumsily, ignoring his classmates' warning, showing more determination than preparation. The spell does activate, and the boy celebrates thinking it worked. But the result comes out completely wrong. The magic manifests in a strange and uncontrolled way, clearly showing that he does not master what he is doing. The magic goes completely out of control. What was supposed to heal starts acting in reverse. Without understanding how it works, the student ends up causing a serious effect. The excess energy corrupts the body, leading to necrosis. Panic spreads as the mistake reveals the real danger of using magic without knowledge. Before the situation worsens, Jire intervenes and uses high-level magic to reverse the damage. The boy's arm is instantly restored, leaving everyone in shock, while he reacts without fully understanding what just happened. The students become confused trying to understand who used such absurd magic, but Jire quickly moves away. He realizes that if he is discovered, they will want him to teach, and that is exactly the kind of responsibility he wants to avoid at all costs. The next day, the students, full of confidence, decide they will challenge Jire to a fight, believing they can defeat him and force him to teach them magic. While they completely underestimate his strength, Jire simply sighs, already realizing he has been dragged into yet another problem, an inevitable duel against the students. After the incident, the students conclude that Jire can teach them and go to the director to confirm it. Even after refusing at first, he ends up being pressured and sets a condition. He will only teach them if they can withstand him for a few minutes in combat. Otherwise, he does not want to be involved with them anymore. Before the duel, there is some teasing. The students call Jire old, and he responds by saying he is only 18. Confident, he changes the rules. Instead of fighting one by one, he tells them all to attack at once, making it clear that, for him, it would be far too easy to face them individually. One of the students charges in confidently, summoning a powerful fire spell with a complex chant. The flame explodes toward Jire with full force, showing that at least in theory he knows how to use offensive magic, but it is still a direct, predictable attack, driven more by emotion than real control. The attack lands, but Jire emerges completely unharmed. The students are shocked and realize that, despite the spell's strength, it is still far from reaching someone at his level. The students realize they cannot handle it on their own and decide to join forces, using combined magic to increase the power of their attack. Jire watches and immediately understands their strategy. They begin to use combined magic, but before they can finish the spell, Jire interrupts. He points out that their execution is far too slow, something that would be fatal in a real battle, ending their attempt right there. As Jire turns his back, one of the students attempts a surprise attack with a physical weapon, taking advantage of the distraction to try to catch him off guard. Jire reacts instantly and blocks the attack with ease, calling the student naive. He realizes that the combined magic was just a distraction to create this ambush. But even so, he is not shaken, making it clear that it is nowhere near enough to defeat him. Time runs out, and Jire wins without difficulty. The students acknowledge that the gap in level is far too large, while he confirms that he has fulfilled the condition. After the defeat, Jire asks why they want to learn magic. The students explain that they do not want to follow the noble path imposed on them, such as political roles or arranged marriages, but instead want to become adventurers, gain power, and live exploring the world. Since they all share the same goal and frustrations, they decided to form a group. Hearing this, Jire realizes the weight of their answer and even regrets asking. After hearing their reasons, Jire gives in a little. He says he will teach them just a bit, making it clear that it is not for their sake, but because he does not want to see anyone going out unprepared and ending up dying for nothing. As soon as he accepts, the students burst with excitement and immediately start calling Jire teacher, bombarding him with questions all at once. He gets irritated by the noise, tells everyone to speak one at a time, and makes it clear that he will only teach in his own way, while they, excited, already ask to learn more advanced things, like healing magic, after the scare they went through. The young man gives an explanation in front of a board filled with formulas, organizing the reasoning step by step until reaching the final result. He demonstrates mastery and clarity while connecting every stage of the process, concluding with the idea that true understanding comes from a properly applied method. The students struggle to keep up with the explanation and ask for more details, while the young man tries to maintain control of the situation, even as he realizes how difficult teaching really is. He reflects on his own difficulty in conveying knowledge while deepening the analysis, explaining that the result of the confrontation was influenced by factors such as body reinforcement and magical compatibility. One of the female students remains attentive, genuinely interested in understanding the foundation behind what happened during the duel. The young man continues the explanation while the students show confusion regarding the differences between magic levels and their outcomes. He simplifies the concept, emphasizing that the strength of magic does not depend solely on its level, but also on how it is applied. He then decides to demonstrate it in practice, gathering energy in his hand to directly show what he had just explained. The young man demonstrates it in practice by launching a sphere of energy, causing a controlled explosion and revealing the true impact of the technique. The students react in shock, finally realizing the difference between theory and practical application. After the demonstration, he concludes that even basic spells can be useful depending on how they are used, and officially ends the class. As he walks away, one of the female students calls out to him, wanting to speak privately. The girl points out the damage caused by the demonstration, making the scale of the problem impossible to ignore. He reacts without knowing how to deal with it, realizing that the situation has become far worse than he expected, and that he will have to face the consequences himself. Left without money after the incident, he panics when he realizes he needs to pay for the damages within only a few days. With no easy alternatives available, he decides that he will have to find a way to make money quickly, even if it will not be simple. A young woman interrupts him, demanding silence and drawing his attention, indicating that she has something more serious to discuss. He reunites with the young woman and tries to act naturally by starting a conversation, but she responds in a direct and unimpressed manner. The interaction reveals a certain level of discomfort as she questions why he is even there. During the conversation, she explains that she chose a different path after graduation and now works teaching magic. He comments on his own situation and the direction his life took, while the dialogue highlights the differences in their choices and carries a light tone of teasing between them. He receives information about former acquaintances, discovering that one of them disappeared after leaving the group, while another still remains active in dangerous battles. Reflecting on it, he concludes that their lives have taken completely different directions, while suspicions regarding one of their pasts still remain unresolved. The conversation becomes more tense when she suggests possible connections to recent events. He reacts nervously and tries to avoid the topic, showing uncertainty. By the end, it becomes clear that something is being hidden while she silently observes him. She reveals that she needs money, while he, desperate, offers everything he has in order to avoid trouble. The situation ends with him giving in completely, making it clear that he has no room to resist. He apologizes and promises not to cause any more problems, trying to ease the situation. Right after that, he attempts to lighten the mood and get closer to her, but she keeps her distance, making it clear that she has no intention of giving in so easily. The two remain seated in silence, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. He tries to act naturally, but the lack of interaction only makes the situation increasingly awkward. She finally breaks the silence by starting to eat, revealing an unexpectedly large appetite. He becomes surprised by the sudden change, while the atmosphere between them becomes slightly lighter. While eating, she notices that he is staring at her and immediately shuts the situation down, leaving him speechless. He backs away, and the moment once again becomes mildly awkward. He tries to distract himself by using a magical item while remaining beside her, already aware that he has no option of leaving. While handling the object, he realizes that he forgot how to use it properly, catching her attention. The conversation changes direction when she notices the item and questions him about it, showing interest in what he is holding. She moves closer to show him how to properly use the item, guiding the process by inserting mana and explaining how it functions. He is surprised by how close she suddenly is, but still pays close attention to the instructions. After understanding it, he realizes that proper usage is essential in order to maintain the item without damaging it. The two realize that they share an interest in magical tools, creating a moment of mutual understanding between them. The previously uncomfortable atmosphere fades away, and the conversation begins to flow much more naturally. The conversation shifts toward a festival dedicated to heroes, filled with events and celebrations across the city. He asks about a magical artifact exhibition, but she reveals that she was never able to get accepted into it. In the end, she suddenly makes an unexpected request, catching him completely off guard. She reveals that she managed to get tickets for the magical artifact exhibition through an acquaintance, leaving him completely excited and shocked. His exaggerated reaction turns the moment into a relaxed and playful exchange between the two. Even while trying to deny his interest, he eventually ends up begging for a ticket to the event. She notices the contradiction and agrees to hand over one of the tickets, but only in exchange for a deal, which he accepts immediately. As the condition for receiving the ticket, she asks him to accompany her while shopping. The unexpected request catches him completely unprepared, leaving him unable to react right away. She explains that she wants company while shopping for clothes, making it clear that this is the agreement in exchange for the ticket. He is surprised by the request, trying to process the situation while she maintains the proposal as if it were completely natural. She explains that she likes fashion and wants to buy clothes for her own enjoyment, but soon reveals that she also wants to dress up for someone special. When she mentions that it is the person she loves, he is caught off guard by her honesty. She admits that she originally planned to attend the event with someone else, but something changed her plans. Realizing that there is a complicated situation behind it, he avoids pressing further into the matter, and the two eventually agree to go out together after classes. Before finalizing the agreement, she adds that he will have to pay for everything she buys. The demand catches him completely by surprise, while she confirms the condition without the slightest hesitation. Even without any money, he accepts the agreement after thinking about how rare the tickets are. She then decides to postpone the shopping trip until after the magic tournament, and he ends up agreeing without having much choice. While calculating his debts and realizing that the tournament prize money may not even be enough, he starts worrying about his lack of time and money. Thinking about asking someone for help, he suddenly notices a suspicious presence near the shop. As he approaches the shop, he finds two girls making noise at the entrance, even late at night. While one of them tries to contain the other's excitement, the scene draws attention because of the absurd commotion they are causing. The two continue trying to sneak into the place, acting as though they are carrying out an important mission. While one insists on moving forward no matter what, the other questions why they do not simply resolve the situation in a more direct way. While discussing how to act without causing trouble for humans, the two are suddenly interrupted by his arrival. The interruption throws both of them into panic, and one of the girls immediately tries to deny that they were attempting anything suspicious. Upon seeing the young man, one of the girls falls into complete panic and mistakes him for someone connected to their past. The other tries to calm her down, pointing out that he does not completely match the description they knew, while the entire atmosphere turns into total chaos. After the initial confusion, he questions the suspicious behavior of the two girls after finding them near the open window. Pressured by the situation, they desperately try to invent an excuse to justify what they were doing there. Trying to escape the situation, one of the girls claims to be an employee of the shop, but he quickly notices the inconsistency in her story. The lie falls apart immediately, leaving both girls even more desperate while he begins to understand the situation more clearly. Unable to maintain the lie any longer, the two finally reveal who they truly are and launch into an exaggerated speech about conquering the world and subjugating humanity. He simply watches the scene in complete confusion at the absurd situation unfolding in front of him. The girl tries to stop her companion before she says too much, while he watches the pair trying to act like grand and powerful villains. Despite the chaos, he begins to realize that behind their strange behavior lies a difficult situation, since the two appear to be living under terrible conditions. After realizing that the two were about to steal out of desperation, he stops them before they can do something worse. Instead of directly scolding them, he decides to show them a basket full of food to catch their attention. He offers the sweets so the two girls will give up on stealing and return home instead. The girl is shocked by the amount of food, while he reveals that he had permission to take those items from the shop. He even offers them money to help, but asks them not to steal again. Moved by his kindness, the girl sincerely thanks him while enjoying the food she had always wanted to try. The girl reveals that she lost everything and eventually turned to stealing out of desperation. After receiving his help, she begins to see humans differently, while the other girl remains suspicious and continues provoking the situation. Before leaving, the girl thanks him for the help and promises that she will never forget what she received that night. Excited, she says goodbye while promising that one day she will repay the favor, while he simply watches the two of them walk away. After the two girls leave, he reflects on the strange encounter before returning to worry about his debts. While trying to find a solution, he suddenly remembers a magical tournament and realizes that it may be his chance to earn money. Before the two girls disappear completely, he calls them back and makes an unexpected request. He wants them to help him recover the money he lost. The two become confused by the sudden proposal. While walking through the magical city, he observes how magic exists in everything around them, from transportation to ordinary objects. The girl enthusiastically explains details about the place, showing her familiarity with the environment while guiding him through the streets. While wandering through the city, she becomes distracted after spotting a sweets stand and decides to stop to buy something, since he needs to handle matters related to the tournament. Alone, he looks at the enormous arena and realizes that the beginning of the competition is finally approaching. Standing before the arena, he begins thinking about the opponents he may face during the tournament. Even without knowing what awaits him, he decides that he will do absolutely anything to win and obtain the prize money. While registering for the magical tournament, he remembers that he only entered the competition out of necessity. Even though he originally had no intention of participating, he accepts that he must win in order to earn money and solve his problems. During registration, he avoids using his real name so he will not attract unwanted attention. Forced to choose a nickname for the tournament, he eventually decides to use another name and compete anonymously. The receptionist warns him that the chosen name is already famous because of a well-known hero in the city, leaving him surprised. After hearing that, he remembers that the name was also connected to someone mentioned earlier, making the coincidence start to feel strange. After finishing the registration under another name, he receives confirmation that the tournament schedule will be announced later. As a bonus for participating, he receives a lottery box containing a random magical item, making him curious about what he obtained. After opening the box, he discovers that he pulled a rare and expensive accessory created specifically for the event. However, despite its high value, the item possesses no useful ability other than being extremely durable, leaving him completely disappointed. While walking around the venue wearing the accessory required for the tournament, he witnesses participants being informed that their registrations have been cancelled for failing to meet the necessary conditions. After noticing one of the competitors, he gets the feeling that he has seen him before, realizing that something strange is happening. After putting on the strange accessory, he unintentionally catches someone's attention, leading them to mistake him for another person. However, they quickly realize the misunderstanding because of the exaggerated appearance, and the situation ends in an awkward moment. After realizing the risk of being recognized, he panics and tries to leave the area quickly while still using the strange disguise. On the way, he accidentally bumps into a girl, unexpectedly interrupting his escape. After colliding with the girl, he tries to end the situation quickly before being recognized and escapes immediately afterward. Meanwhile, the two girls discuss the tournament and begin suspecting the identity of the stranger who was wearing the unusual glasses. The girl admits that she is still not strong enough to confront the person she is searching for and decides that she must become stronger before taking action. Meanwhile, he realizes the danger of remaining there and concludes that he should disappear as soon as the tournament ends. The grand magical tournament finally begins, with the arena completely packed while the rules are announced to every participant. The elimination battles are presented as safe confrontations thanks to the recovery magic applied throughout the venue, while the organizer of the event officially starts the competition before the crowd. The tournament organizer appears before the crowd and officially introduces herself as one of the princesses of Maya. Her elegant entrance captures everyone's attention while the opening ceremony continues. The princess delivers a speech thanking everyone for making the tournament possible and proudly expresses her participation in the tradition of the event. However, in the middle of the formal presentation, she suddenly interrupts everything by calling an employee closer, awakening curiosity among the audience. The ceremony ends up taking a strange turn when the princess admits having difficulty reading her own speech, creating an awkward exchange with the employee standing beside her. While the situation becomes increasingly embarrassing, the audience can only watch the confusion unfolding on stage. After regaining control of the speech, the princess finishes it in an overly energetic manner, encouraging the participants to fight honorably in the tournament. Watching everything from the audience, he concludes that the organizer is even more eccentric than he originally imagined. The tournament begins by announcing the first match of the main bracket. On one side stands the previous year's champion and the favorite to win, a renowned and experienced warrior. On the other side, he enters as a low-ranked adventurer recommended by the Magical Academy, attracting attention because of the absurd difference between the two competitors. Before the fight begins, he receives enthusiastic support from familiar faces, including his students and the girls he met earlier. After realizing that all of them were watching the battle, he starts feeling even more pressure to win. While the girls watch nervously from the stands, the arena officially announces the beginning of the fight. With everyone focused on the confrontation, the battle finally begins. Before the battle can even properly progress, the champion attempts to intimidate him, claiming that the gap between them is far too large, and suggesting that he should surrender. Even so, he remains firm, determined to fight until the very end, despite the pressure imposed by his opponent. Even under the overwhelming pressure of his opponent, he refuses the idea of surrendering. Determined, he makes it clear that he cannot accept defeat because he absolutely needs to win. The champion acknowledges his determination for continuing to fight despite the disadvantage. In response, he decides to take the battle seriously and promises to fight with all of his strength and pride. The champion charges directly at him, all at once, beginning the confrontation with the full pressure of his power. Facing the direct assault, he prepares to react as the battle finally explodes into full intensity. The fight begins at incredible speed, but instead of counterattacking, he continuously avoids the champion's strikes. Irritated by the defensive behavior, the opponent begins pressuring him even harder in the center of the arena. Unable to land a hit on him, the champion starts growing irritated after realizing that he continues dodging without showing any fear. While calmly maintaining himself during the fight, he remembers the favor he requested from the two girls before the tournament began. Before the tournament, he explains to the two girls that he intends to use the betting system surrounding the competition in order to make money. Since participants are forbidden from betting on themselves, he asks the girls to place the bets for him, promising to share the profits if he wins. The two girls agree to help him with the betting and become excited about the idea, believing that he must win at any cost. While they enthusiastically imagine the possible profits, he reveals that he already has a plan in mind to turn the situation in his favor. While continuing to dodge the attacks, he mentally calculates the odds and the money involved in the bets. Realizing that victory would grant an enormous amount of money, he concludes that he must continue winning, even if it causes even more problems around him. The opponent begins questioning his confidence during the fight, unable to understand why someone so weak would remain so calm. In response, he reveals that he is thinking far beyond that battle, focusing on the bets and how much profit he would make if a low-ranked adventurer advanced through the tournament. The champion completely rejects his logic, finding the idea of turning the tournament into a gambling opportunity absurd. Even so, he remains firm in his reasoning and prepares to reveal his true strategy. While continuing to dodge the champion's explosive attacks, he finally reveals his calculation. If he wins as the absolute underdog, the bets will generate a gigantic fortune. Even amid the chaos of the arena, his mind remains focused solely on the profit he can obtain. Against every expectation, he wins the confrontation and is officially announced as the victor of the battle. While the arena reacts with shock at the result, he internally celebrates after realizing that his plan to earn an enormous amount of money worked perfectly. After winning unexpectedly and profiting massively from the bets, he begins attracting attention throughout the tournament. His method of quickly defeating opponents with magic starts building his reputation, while he uses the money he earned to continue staying at the inn and advancing through the competition. Excited by the fortune they accumulated, the two girls begin imagining everything they could do with so much money. Filled with excitement, they want to bet even more on the upcoming matches, but he immediately shuts down the idea after revealing that betting would be closed on the final day of the tournament. After profiting from the tournament, he decides to share part of the money with the two girls, as thanks for helping with the bets. While thinking about using the rest to pay off his debts and fulfill his promises, he tries convincing the two of them to spend the money on something they truly desire. Upon receiving the money, the girl realizes that she will no longer need to resort to stealing in order to survive. Moved by the help she received, she sincerely thanks him, while the other girl immediately starts acting overly excited and dramatic around him. Before leaving, the two girls thank him once again for the help and say they may be able to repay the favor someday in the future. He calmly says goodbye, remaining alone once again, while beginning to think about what he should do next. On the final day of the tournament, the competition between the four finalists finally begins. Even though he has already earned the money he needed, he continues participating because of the grand prize, an extremely valuable magical item. After winning the first two rounds, he also discovers that Lena abandoned the tournament midway through the competition, leaving him relieved that he will not have to face her directly. In the decisive match of the tournament, he faces his final opponent, a mysterious girl who is tied with him for first place. Despite her young and calm appearance, she possesses a terrifying reputation, since she usually surrounds the arena in black mist and defeats her enemies before they can even understand what happened. Realizing the danger standing before him, he decides to remain completely alert. The two finalists finally stand face to face inside the arena. On one side, he maintains his calm posture while wearing the strange disguise that became his trademark throughout the tournament. On the other side, the mysterious girl looks at him with a serene and confident smile. As tension takes over the entire stadium, the decisive battle finally begins. Before the fight truly starts, the girl politely introduces herself as Enri and behaves in a surprisingly gentle manner, asking him to go easy on her. Her calm and delicate attitude makes him realize that his first impression of her may have been wrong, causing him to lower his guard slightly while accepting the greeting. The instant they shake hands, a sudden shock surges through his body. Pain appears unexpectedly, forcing him to immediately pull back while realizing in shock that the girl had cast magic through the simple act of greeting him. Even while protected by body reinforcement magic, he feels a strange pain piercing through his mind, as though an electric current had directly struck his brain. While trying to understand what just happened, the girl shocks the entire arena by suddenly surrendering the match, calmly stating that she cannot win that battle. Without showing any regret for her sudden surrender, the girl simply walks away from the arena with a peaceful smile. Before leaving, she says that she would like to speak with him again somewhere else, leaving behind a mysterious farewell while he still cannot fully understand her true intentions. With the opponent's unexpected surrender, the result is immediately decided. Before the entire arena, he is announced as the champion of the tournament, but instead of celebrating, he is left completely confused by the strange and sudden way everything ended. After the tournament, he is taken to a private room while trying to process everything that happened. Even though he is happy for obtaining both the prize money and the magical item, he still cannot understand why he won the final battle so easily. While resting and waiting to be called, someone finally enters the room to speak with him personally. The person who enters the room turns out to be none other than Princess Elena herself, the organizer of the tournament. She formally introduces herself, apologizes for the strange events, and expresses interest in getting to know him better from now on. Upon realizing that he is standing face to face with the Princess of Magicosmaya, he becomes completely shocked. Even after revealing her position as princess, Elena behaves in a surprisingly close and informal way toward him. While he tries to maintain as much formality as possible, she insists that he relax, and even begins calling him by his real name, making it clear that she already knows far more about him than she should. In a completely unexpected moment, Elena makes an absurd declaration right after revealing that she knows his true identity. Without any hesitation whatsoever, the princess states that she intends to make him her husband, repeating it with a radiant smile while he remains completely speechless before the surreal situation. Completely lost after hearing the princess's proposal, he makes it clear that he does not even understand where such an idea came from and only wants to collect his reward and leave to rest. Elena interprets his reaction as simple shyness, but he immediately shuts down any further advances from her, refusing without hesitation. Elena becomes offended by the rejection and starts listing her own qualities, insisting that any man would gladly accept a proposal from the most beautiful princess in the kingdom. Even while admitting that she is attractive, he explains that marrying someone he just met makes absolutely no sense. Even so, Elena completely ignores his logic and continues treating the marriage as something inevitable. Without the slightest shame, Elena continues insisting on the idea of marriage, and even starts using her own body as an argument to convince him. While speaking in an embarrassed yet extremely determined manner, he can only remain frozen while trying to process the absurd direction the conversation has taken. While analyzing her clothes using his appraisal ability, he discovers the shocking truth hidden behind the princess's voluptuous appearance. The magical outfit she wears is actually an artifact capable of artificially recreating body parts, revealing that much of her exaggerated curves were the result of a magical item rather than being natural. Without realizing it, he accidentally blurts out the result of his analysis of the magical item, implying that the princess's body was not exactly natural. Elena is completely horrified and reacts in total offense, while the maid desperately tries calming her down before the situation becomes even more embarrassing. While the atmosphere remains chaotic, the maid suddenly joins the conversation, only to calmly state that her measurements are real, making him even more uncomfortable. Shortly afterward, Elena briefly stops joking around and reveals that a succession conflict has begun within the royal family, explaining that even though she understands his rejection, she still has no intention of giving up on marrying him. Elena finally explains the real reason she called him there. The king declared that the next heir to the throne will be the one capable of gathering the most powerful and talented magic user by their side. Because of his victory in the tournament, she believes she has found someone capable of helping her solve an extremely dangerous problem, confronting a monstrous creature known as the demon that tears out hearts. While the maid tries stopping Elena from revealing information that is far too dangerous, the princess insists that he is her only hope at the moment. Even though he feels completely uncomfortable with the ideas of marriage and politics, he realizes that Elena is genuinely desperate, while the maid coldly confirms that she no longer has anyone else she can trust. The maid explains that Elena is seen as useless within the royal family, struggling even with basic magic and noble etiquette. Because of that, the king practically forced her to find someone powerful to support her in the battle for the throne. Even after hearing all of this, he immediately refuses the marriage proposal. Even after being rejected multiple times, Elena continues insisting for him to reconsider. Only after realizing that she would not be able to convince him at that moment does she finally say that she will give up, although she still makes it clear that she has not completely abandoned the idea. Before he could simply collect his reward and leave, several people suddenly enter the room and block the exit. Elena, clearly nervous, warns him not to think that he will be able to leave so easily. He realizes that the people hidden around the room were using interference and disguise magic, revealing that Elena had already prepared everything in advance with anti-magic specialists. Taking advantage of the situation, the princess pressures him once again, asking if he still believes accepting the marriage is impossible now. The maid treats the entire threat as though it were merely a great performance, leaving Elena desperate because of the situation. Without many options left, he realizes that he probably will not be able to leave peacefully with his reward, and begins considering using force to resolve the matter. Not wanting to prolong the chaos any further, he activates teleportation magic and instantly disappears from the room. Elena and her maid are left shocked after seeing him escape so easily, while he vanishes before anyone can stop him. After escaping, he nearly collapses onto the ground, feeling nausea and pain throughout his entire body. Despite mastering teleportation, the magic still causes enormous physical strain on him, making it clear that repeatedly using dimensional magic comes with severe side effects. Still recovering from the teleportation, he decides that he does not want to meet Elena again anytime soon, planning only to pay his debt later. While trying to rest, a mysterious girl suddenly appears and immediately notices that he is unwell, leaving him surprised after noticing her strange reaction when he answers her. The girl shows genuine relief upon hearing that he is all right, revealing that she had truly been worried about him. While observing her white hair and her gentle reaction, he begins suspecting that she may actually be the very person he has been searching for. Even while suspicious of the girl's identity, he decides to act carefully and shows her a portrait of the person he is searching for. She replies that she has never seen anyone resembling that person, and he quickly tries to leave before the conversation continues any further. Before he leaves, the girl asks that if he ever finds the person in the portrait, he should deliver a message. She admits that, in the past, she allowed her emotions to speak louder without considering his feelings, and sincerely apologizes for what happened years ago. She admits that she was selfish for wanting to monopolize his feelings, understanding that someone as kind and admired as him would naturally attract other women. Even so, despite trying to accept that reality, she cannot hide the discomfort she feels when imagining him living beside another woman. Before leaving, she asks him once more to deliver that message and says that she hopes to meet him again someday. Then, with a sincere smile, she congratulates him for winning the magical tournament, saying that what he accomplished was truly incredible, leaving him completely shaken by the conversation. With a love-struck gaze, she reveals that the encounter only confirms something she has felt for years. There is only one person she wishes to marry. After directly calling him by his real name, she walks away smiling, while he remains completely stunned after realizing who she truly was. Completely shaken, he begins panicking after realizing that Rafine had been beside him the entire time without revealing her identity. While trying to understand the situation and escape from the problems involving marriage and feelings, he ends up encountering another girl, no longer having any idea what he should do next. The new girl immediately notices that he looks exhausted and asks whether he wants to back out of the agreement they made. Even though he is still shaken by the previous events, he refuses and explains that he will spend the day shopping with Eve in exchange for the tickets to the magical artifact exhibition. While they talk, she suggests that he simply change his appearance to avoid being recognized, but he refuses because disguise magic affects his senses and bothers him a lot. Still joking around and complimenting his own appearance, he ends up irritating the girl, who calls him cruel before asking for a moment to grab something capable of hiding his face. Shortly afterward, she appears carrying a full suit of armor for him to use as a disguise. Even though he finds the idea absurd, he accepts after realizing that the armor is surprisingly light and practical, while she admits that she chose it simply because she thought it looked cool. The two begin shopping in ordinary stores, and he becomes surprised after realizing that Eve does not care about expensive brands or excessive luxury. For her, the important thing is finding something genuinely beautiful and comfortable, not simply the most expensive item in the shop. Eve starts trying on several outfits and asks for his opinion every single time she changes clothes. However, because he knows absolutely nothing about fashion, he ends up giving the same response every time, leaving her frustrated for not receiving a serious answer about which look actually suits her best. Trying to get a more genuine reaction from him, Eve appears wearing completely different styles, ranging from casual clothes to an extremely delicate dress. The moment he sees her like that, he ends up speechless, realizing for the first time just how beautiful she truly looked. Eve continues testing increasingly extravagant outfits, including maid costumes and even cat accessories. For the first time, he reacts sincerely and calls one of the outfits cute, leaving Eve excited and causing her to start taking his opinion completely seriously. In the end, after a great deal of indecision, she chooses to buy the very first outfit she had tried on. After finishing the shopping, Eve says that she is already satisfied, and comments that Ray would probably have given the exact same response as him. Even so, since they were already there, she decides to continue wandering around the city before finally handing over the promised tickets. Even after already obtaining what he wanted, he decides to continue accompanying Eve throughout the city. Happy with his answer, she smiles and holds his hand while the two continue walking together through the streets, peacefully enjoying the rest of the day. After spending the entire day walking around while wearing armor, he is already completely exhausted. Thinking that perhaps he had been bothering Eve or making her bored, he sincerely asks whether she at least managed to enjoy herself during the outing. Eve honestly answers that she truly enjoyed spending the day beside him. Relieved, he says that alone is enough, believing that people should enjoy the things they genuinely like, while she quietly thanks him, clearly happy after hearing those words. When he asks what they should do next, Eve suggests that they go eat somewhere. However, after slightly injuring her hand, she panics when he tries to use healing magic on her, desperately begging him not to do it. Eve insists that the injury was so tiny that simply licking it would make it better, leaving him completely speechless. After realizing that the wound had actually disappeared without healing magic, he begins suspecting that she might secretly be using some kind of recovery magic. While Eve goes to buy food, he finally removes the armor to rest for a while. At that moment, he overhears people talking about the so-called heart-ripping demon appearing once again near a shop on Alicton Road, immediately causing him to pay attention to the conversation. After hearing the rumors about the demon, he becomes disturbed by the cruelty of the attacks and thinks that someone should put an end to it already. Eve notices his serious expression, but quickly changes the atmosphere by appearing overloaded with far too much food for only 2 people, leaving him shocked by the absurd amount she intended to eat. After the meal, Eve finally hands over the promised tickets and thanks him for spending the day beside her. Even though night has already fallen, she says that she still wants to visit one more place before ending the date, asking him to wait there without moving. While waiting, Eve notices breadcrumbs stuck on him and starts teasing him, saying that despite trying to act like an adult, he still seemed like a child in many ways. Even so, she smiles warmly, clearly finding that side of him adorable and entertaining. After noticing her smile, he comments that he prefers seeing her cheerful like that, rather than serious or distant. His words completely catch Eve off guard, leaving her speechless for several seconds. When he notices tears forming in her eyes, he panics, believing that he said something wrong. Eve then explains that she only became emotional because he reminded her so much of Ray, both in his behavior and personality, saying that the two of them were practically identical. While trying to understand who this Ray actually is, he begins suspecting that she may unknowingly be talking about him. Even without recognizing his face because of the disguise, Eve continues praising Ray with sincere admiration, saying that he was an incredibly kind, strong, and special person to her. Eve reveals that Ray saved her life in the past, and that because of that, he became someone extremely important to her. When he comments that a person like that should probably have become a hero already, Eve immediately denies it, as though she believes Ray would never choose to follow such a path. While they continue talking, Eve leads him to a silent place, surrounded by flowers. Then calmly, she reveals that Ray never became a hero because he was already dead. Upon realizing where they are, he finally understands the shock of the situation, after noticing that the place was actually Ray's grave. Standing before the flower-covered gravestone, Eve confirms that it truly was the grave of hero Ray. Unable to believe what he is seeing, he becomes completely shaken, incapable of even organizing his own thoughts after such an absurd revelation. Even without fully understanding what he was feeling, Eve tries comforting him in her own way. She says that perhaps it would be better for him to stop carrying everything alone and simply vent his feelings, even if she did not possess the perfect words to help him. After hearing Eve's words, he remembers the promise he made earlier and decides to remain by her side until the end of the day. The answer completely catches Eve off guard, leaving her surprised and emotional after realizing that he genuinely chose to stay there with her. While the two walk together, Eve begins sharing many memories about Ray. She talks about little details regarding the way he acted, his personal preferences, and even the similar reactions the two of them had, reinforcing more and more how strongly she saw Ray reflected in him. Eve reveals that before meeting Ray, her life felt empty and colorless. According to her, it was Ray who changed everything, showing her that beautiful things still existed in the world and making her believe that her life truly had value. With a sincere smile, Eve says that Ray taught her how to feel emotions she had never experienced before, such as joy, hope, and happiness. For her, it was thanks to him that the world stopped being empty and finally gained new colors. Eve finally admits what she had hidden in her heart for such a long time. She loved Ray. With sadness in her voice, she reveals that she realized those feelings far too late and never managed to confess them to him while he was still alive. Eve says that when she meets Ray again someday, she will finally tell him everything she feels because she no longer wants to continue living with regrets. Alarmed, he immediately thinks about resurrection magic, but she makes it clear that she was not talking about that. Then Eve reveals her true intention. She is searching for Yggdrasil, an existence connected to the power of bringing the dead back to life. All of this is because she wishes to meet Ray one more time and finally remain beside him again. She explains that Yggdrasil is a legendary recovery magic supposedly free from the normal limitations of ordinary resurrection. Unlike other forms of magic, it could bring someone back even long after death, but almost nobody knows about its existence because this information is secretly guarded by the elite among mages. Even while knowing that finding Yggdrasil could take years or perhaps never happen at all, Eve refuses to give up because it is the only hope she still has left. After hearing her determination, he promises to inform her if he ever discovers any information regarding the legendary magic, earning a sincere thank you from her. After the emotional conversation, Eve asks him to accompany her home, and he immediately agrees. However, while the two peacefully walk together through the night, something strange suddenly appears in the sky, instantly catching their attention. What fell from the sky was Aldi, completely desperate. He immediately warns them that something terrible happened. The students Eve and Jire were supervising disappeared without leaving behind any traces. Aldi explains that the students have been missing since the previous day and never even returned to the dormitories. Even though they are troublemakers, they had never broken curfew before, and even the guard accompanying the group vanished alongside them. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, they begin suspecting that some terrible accident occurred. After connecting the student's disappearance to the rumors regarding someone ripping out children's hearts, he begins suspecting the worst. Aldi desperately begs for help, saying that only Jire possesses detection magic powerful enough to find them, but overwhelmed by conflicting emotions and the weight of the situation, he coldly responds that he does not want to get involved. Even while claiming that he did not want to help, Jire eventually gives in after Aldi desperately begs him. Trying to hide his true feelings, he says that he will only help if the Academy rewards him afterward, but Eve immediately realizes that he is lying and that he would have helped no matter what. Right after that, she asks how he plans to locate the missing students. Jire then activates his clairvoyance magic to track the missing students, leaving Eve and Aldi shocked after realizing that he could use such a rare ability. He comments that he never revealed it before because he always used the magic in secret. After searching throughout all of Magicka's Maya, without finding even a trace of the students, Jire reaches a worrying conclusion. They were probably taken to the other world, a place that not even his clairvoyance can directly locate. Even so, he believes there is still a chance, because there must be some hidden distortion within the city connecting the two worlds. Jire explains that manually searching for the distortion would be faster than trying to track it through magic. He then asks Aldi to prepare something important before the search begins. Desperate to help, Aldi immediately agrees, saying that he will provide absolutely anything, even ancient artifacts if necessary. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure watches several rats scattered throughout Magico's Maya and appears entertained by the entire situation. Little by little, it becomes clear that those creatures are being used to monitor the city and are most likely directly connected to the disappearances. Elsewhere, the mysterious figure appears before someone injured and terrified, offering help with a disturbing smile. However, it quickly becomes clear that this so-called help came from someone completely insane, treating the entire situation as nothing more than entertainment. The hooded figure continues enjoying the situation while holding a torn-out heart and reveals that they still want to continue playing. Right afterward, the figure appears before several unconscious students and bows respectfully towards someone called Gluttony-sama, making it clear that everything happening was part of something far darker and far more sinister. Following the traces of the distortion, the group arrives at what appears to be an ordinary abandoned house. Even without sensing any magic in the area, Jire confirms that there is a hidden passage there directly connected to the other world. Jire reveals that he asked Aldi to gather rats throughout the city so he could use magic on them and search for the hidden distortion. After controlling thousands of those creatures, he finally managed to locate the passage to the other world, confirming that the door of that house was the entrance. While analyzing the door, Jire notices that the surrounding space was distorted. He explains that one of the rats made contact with the other world, and, in that instant, his vision changed into a gigantic cave, indicating that the place was probably a labyrinth connected to another dimension. Just as they prepare to enter, something unexpected causes Aldi to order everyone to wait. Jire decides to enter the other world alone and orders the others to stay behind. Aldi tries insisting that they should go as a group, but Jire refuses, saying that he already reinforced his own body with magic, and that their only role is to prevent more people from approaching the distortion. Without hesitation, Jire makes the reason for wanting to go alone completely clear. In his eyes, Aldi would only get in the way during the mission. Even though he feels hurt, Aldi accepts Jire's decision and says that he already expected that answer. However, before Jire enters the distortion alone, Eve grabs his clothes and states that she will go with him to help rescue the students. Even after being warned about the danger, Eve insists on accompanying Jire. Determined, she says that she cannot allow him to go alone and promises that she will not become a burden during the mission, even claiming that he could abandon her if something went wrong. After a great deal of insistence, Jire finally agrees to bring Eve with him, but warns her never to leave his side. Aldi also tries to accompany the two of them, but ultimately gets left behind to guard the entrance to the distortion while they depart toward the other world. The moment they cross through the hidden passage, Jire and Eve arrive in the other world, a dark place surrounded by mysterious black smoke. Upon seeing that strange environment for the first time, Eve realizes that they have finally entered the dimension where the missing students may be trapped. Jire explains that the black smoke functions as a barrier that interferes with magic, preventing him from even controlling the rats inside that place. Even so, his connection with them still allows him to know what exists ahead. Before continuing, he gives Eve one final chance to turn back in case she still wishes to give up. Without hesitation, Eve decides to continue by his side until the very end. In response, Jire activates his magic and warns her not to regret her decision, while a strange presence seems to emerge from the depths of that dark place. A short distance ahead, the two of them discover several children's bodies scattered across the ground, all brutally murdered. Faced with that horrifying scene, Jire reveals that this was exactly why he did not want Eve to come with him. Jire realizes that the students and the guard were already dead by the time the rats found them, all with their hearts ripped out. Furious for arriving too late, he identifies the true culprit standing further ahead and decides to use concealment magic to approach without being noticed. Seeing Eve shaken by the sight of the bodies, Jire explains that healing magic can no longer save those children because they are already dead. However, unwilling to give up on them, he shocks Eve by declaring that he intends to use resurrection magic. Jire reveals that he can still save the students because their souls remain within that world, even though they are on the verge of disappearing due to the brutality of their deaths. While he goes to confront the one responsible for the massacre, he asks Eve to call out to the victims' spirits and prevent them from vanishing before the resurrection can be performed. Consumed by rage, Jire decides to kill the one responsible for the massacre with his own hands. Before leaving, he asks Eve to continue calling the souls of the students no matter what happens, and then creates a powerful barrier around the bodies to protect them while he faces the enemy. While advancing toward the murderer, Jire realizes that the children's souls should normally remain in that place for several more days, which makes it even stranger that they are disappearing so quickly. Even so, confident in the barrier protecting Eve, he decides to focus solely on eliminating the culprit standing before him. Without hesitation, Jire launches a lethal attack and blows apart the murderer's body in a single strike. However, after killing him so easily, he realizes that he does not feel the satisfaction or relief he imagined he would feel after ending the one responsible for the tragedy. Moments later, the true enemy appears before Jire completely unharmed, revealing that the murderer who died was merely a distraction. Irritated, he complains about having his fun interrupted, making it clear that the entire massacre was nothing more than a game to him. The hooded boy furiously threatens Jire, saying that he will now kill him brutally for entering that place without permission. Shocked, Jire notices that the enemy's corpse still remains dead on the ground, yet he himself continues living, claiming that this is only possible thanks to the power of his mysterious lord. The murderer reveals that his transformation is still incomplete and begins acting in a completely insane manner. Filled with hatred toward the humans who humiliated him in the past, he admits that he killed those children for fun, saying that the expressions of despair on their faces at the moment of death were amusing to him. Jire questions why he killed the students, since those children had absolutely no connection to his past. However, the murderer coldly responds that it was all nothing more than coincidence, saying that the students merely reminded him of the people who used to intimidate him long ago. Outraged, Jire loses patience and demands to know the true reason behind such insanity. With a completely disturbing smile, the murderer finally reveals his true objective. He killed all of those people because he was given the mission of summoning an evil god into that world. Before Jire can even react, the murderer pierces his own body without hesitation and offers his life as a sacrifice, calling upon the name of the evil god of gluttony in order to complete the summoning. At the very instant of the sacrifice, a dark creature emerges from the murderer's body and pierces through Jire's arm. However, after fully manifesting, the entity takes the form of a mysterious woman named Enro, who immediately recognizes Jire and reacts with surprise upon meeting him again in that place. Even while injured, Jire remains calm after recognizing Enro before him. Surprised by the unexpected reunion, he admits that he never imagined he would encounter her again in a place like that, making it clear that the two of them already knew each other from the past. After seeing Jire's arm severely wounded, Eve goes into shock and tries running toward him with healing magic. However, he immediately stops her and orders her to continue focusing on calling the students' souls, reminding her that it must be done regardless of what happens to him. Eve ultimately obeys, while Enro reveals the reason Jire cannot heal himself. According to her, any wound caused by the ability of predation prevents the normal use of recovery magic, even on someone as strengthened as Jire. Enro explains that only heroes or people possessing special authority are capable of completely resisting her predation ability. At the same time, she finally notices that Jire possesses the mysterious black eyes, something she failed to notice before because of the glasses he wore. Meanwhile, the murderer reappears, carrying the ripped-out hearts of the victims as an offering to Gluttony-sama. The boy believes that by using the victims' hearts, he will finally succeed in summoning the evil god that Gluttony-sama wishes to bring into the world. Driven insane by obsession, he thanks Enro for giving him the opportunity to take revenge against humanity, treating everything as a reward granted to him by her. After obtaining what she wanted, Enro completely abandons the boy. With a cold smile on her face, she states that he is no longer useful and condemns him to death without showing the slightest bit of pity. Desperate, the boy cannot understand why he is being discarded, even after fulfilling everything Gluttony-sama wanted. However, Enro coldly replies that he was only necessary until that moment, and that now that his role has ended, she no longer has any need for him. After eliminating the boy without remorse, Enro tries acting as though nothing happened and says they should continue their conversation normally. When Jire questions whether the boy was not someone important to her, Enro coldly responds that he was merely a useful tool. Even so, she admits that deep down, he was still nothing more than a child incapable of handling the power he received. Enro reveals that she completely manipulated the boy from the very beginning. She devoured all of his emotions, leaving behind only the desire to kill and seek revenge, while amplifying those feelings even further until he became that insane murderer. To her, it was even a form of kindness, since without that, he would not have been capable of continuing to live normally. Even after everything, Enri continues treating the situation like an ordinary conversation and shows more interest in Jire's mysterious black eyes than in the deaths she caused. She even offers to let Jire and Eve leave safely, but only if they abandon the children there. Outraged, Jire immediately cuts off the conversation, while Enri coldly asks whether those victims were truly important to him. Jire coldly responds that those children were not important people in his life. According to him, they were merely students he met for a few days, and who would soon follow their own paths. However, even while trying to act indifferent, the rage visible on his face makes it clear that he cannot accept what happened to them. Even while attempting to deny any connection to the students, Jire finally allows his true anger to surface. Consumed by fury at Enri's cruelty, he admits that she is deeply infuriating him. After noticing Jire's fury, Enri provokes him and asks how he intends to fight her in that condition. Without saying much, Jire attempts to attack her directly using magic, but quickly realizes in shock that his powers simply do not function in that place. Enri reveals that when she devoured Jire's arm earlier, she also consumed part of his internal magic and all of the magical energy surrounding the area. While Jire tries to understand what happened, she teases him by saying that his power tasted pleasant, like wine, making it clear that she was the one who completely nullified magic in that place. Enri then reveals her true ability, the authority of gluttony, known as predation. With that monstrous power, she can devour magic, energy, and even parts of people themselves, explaining that only someone chosen as the demon lord of gluttony can wield such an absurd ability. Jire is shocked upon hearing Enri speak about demon lords, since officially none should exist yet. Without caring about hiding anything anymore, Enri explains that there are several demon lords connected to sins such as gluttony, wrath, pride, and lust. According to her, a true demon lord is born after defeating the others and taking their demonic marks, obtaining enough power to challenge even the heroes themselves. Confident that Jire could no longer fight without magic, Enri decides to finish everything quickly and says goodbye before attacking. However, at the very last instant, Jire draws his sword and directly blocks the strike, making it clear that he still had not lost the ability to fight. Enri becomes completely shocked after seeing Jire cut through her predation ability, something that should erase anything it touches. While she tries to understand how such a thing was possible, Jire calmly responds that he simply managed to cut it, revealing that his sword possesses a power far beyond what is normal. Jire reveals that the black sword appeared before him 2 years earlier, and that, ever since then, he has never been able to get rid of it. The weapon always returns, cannot be destroyed, and even consumes his energy every time it is used. Even though he hates depending on that cursed sword, he realizes that it is the only thing capable of confronting Enri's monstrous power. Even while using only the pressure from the wind created by the sword's strike, Jire manages to cut through the power of predation from a distance. Enri is left stunned, unable to understand how a sword of that size could reach something without even directly touching the target. Enri begins looking at Jire differently after witnessing him block predation. Unable to believe that an ordinary human could accomplish something like that, she starts suspecting that there is something abnormal about him. Little by little, her surprise transforms into excitement, while she begins laughing in a disturbingly delighted manner after realizing that she has finally found someone capable of opposing her power. After observing Jire's sword and power, Enri finally understands the reason he is capable of fighting against predation. She concludes that Jire possesses a demonic authority, something she never expected to see within a human. According to her, he still does not even know how to properly use that power yet, but he could gradually learn over time. Right afterward, Enri reveals the name of his authority, Sloth, leaving Jire completely shocked. Enri believes that the authority of Sloth explains Jire's abnormal power and begins seeing him as someone special rather than just another ordinary human. Fascinated after finally finding another person carrying a demonic mark, she decides to set the conflict aside and invites Jire to join gluttony. Jire realizes that Enri only changed her attitude because she started believing that she might actually lose the fight. Even so, she continues trying to convince him to join gluttony, offering him a life free from responsibilities, filled with power, wealth, and every desire he could ever wish for. directly appealing to the very concept of sloth. Even while admitting that the proposal sounded tempting, Jire refuses without hesitation. Before Enri can even finish speaking, he cuts through her attack and coldly states that working alongside her would be extremely irritating, making it absolutely clear that he would never accept joining Gluttony. After defeating Enri, Jire notices that his magic slowly begins returning now that predation has disappeared. Without wasting any time, he decides to immediately break the barrier surrounding the students and recover his arm so he can use resurrection and attempt to save everyone before it becomes too late. Just as he is about to resolve everything, Jire realizes that an invisible presence still exists somewhere inside the cave. Even after defeating Enri, part of the power of predation still remains there, as though something else is still hiding nearby. At the same time, Eve also senses another presence close to them, making it clear that the threat is not over yet. Before Jire can fully react, the invisible presence launches a surprise attack and nearly pierces through his body. He narrowly avoids a fatal strike, but ends up wounded once again, realizing that the true danger was still hidden within the cave. Desperate after seeing Jire gravely injured, Eve immediately tries healing him, using high heal. However, to her shock, the magic does not work at all. Unable to understand the reason why, Eve falls into panic while desperately begging him not to die before her eyes. After seeing Jire's condition and realizing that her healing failed, Eve falls into complete despair. Holding him tightly, she begins screaming and crying, unable to accept what is happening. Consumed by guilt, Eve relives all the pain of her past and believes that once again someone important died because of her. Overwhelmed by shock and guilt, Eve begins reliving traumas from her past. Amid her despair, she remembers the moment she was accused of being a monster after the death of a baby, hearing once again the screams and accusations that made her believe ever since then that her existence only brings suffering to the people around her. In the middle of her breakdown, Eve relives another traumatic memory from the past. Locked inside a prison cell and treated like a demon, she remembers the abuse and threats she suffered back when she was called only number 15. Even though she wished to die during that period, she was kept alive solely because cruel people saw value in her due to her appearance and powers. Eve continues being consumed by the memories of her past. She remembers the days when she was called a demon and lived imprisoned, hated by everyone around her. Until 4 years earlier, her life had been entirely empty and colorless, marked only by suffering and loneliness. Alone and emotionally shattered, Eve begins questioning why she is even still alive. She remembers that she carries a curse that spreads death around her whenever she suffers or loses control, while also possessing a cruel blessing that prevents her own death. Abandoned by her parents, sold as a slave, and betrayed countless times, Eve completely lost the ability to trust other people. Consumed by suffering and unable to see even the slightest bit of hope, Eve reaches the point where she wishes only for everything to end. Without dreams, goals, or anyone she can trust, she believed that continuing to live no longer had any meaning. While living imprisoned and without hope, Eve receives the news that she will be sharing her cell with another person. The guards believed that someone wearing cursed armor would be the perfect companion for a person carrying a cursed blessing like hers. Without understanding the situation, Eve simply watches the strange knight being placed beside her for the very first time. Even while imprisoned in the same cell, the mysterious knight begins acting unexpectedly kind toward Eve. He complains about the hard floor, asks about blankets, and casually tries starting a normal conversation as though the situation were nothing serious. Unable to understand behavior so different from the people she knew, Eve begins observing the stranger with curiosity for the very first time. The following day, the knight continues trying to casually speak with Eve, behaving as though being imprisoned there is no big deal at all. While she remains cold and distant, he even comments that prison does not seem so bad since the food arrives without any effort. Unable to understand his relaxed personality, Eve tells him to stop talking to her. Respecting Eve's request, the knight says that he will stop bothering her. However, before backing away, he asks her only one simple question: whether there is something she truly wishes to do. The question catches Eve completely off guard, since nobody before had ever seemed to care about what she felt or desired. The knight continues trying to understand Eve and asks whether she has any dreams, goals, or something she wants to accomplish in the future. While he excitedly talks about his own dream of defeating the Demon King and becoming king himself, Eve merely lowers her head and admits that she has no dreams at all. To her, the future simply no longer meant anything. After hearing Eve say that she has neither dreams nor desires, the knight makes an unexpected decision. Without hesitation, he declares that he hates living like a slave and simply decides to escape from that place, inviting Eve to go together with him. Before she can even understand what is happening, he already begins using magic to open a path out of the prison. The knight reveals his plan without hesitation: destroy the entire arena and escape together with Eve. Even though she is shocked, she realizes that he genuinely intends to tear everything down in order to free her from that prison.